Is your bed big enough for two? The question hung in the air between boss and employee, forbidden and electric. Daniel Wright's answer would change everything, but not in the way either of them imagined. Less than 24 hours after his CEO whispered those dangerous words, Evelyn Harper was dead, leaving behind a company, a secret, and a daughter who didn't know her real mother had been watching her all along. This is the story of a love that never got its chance, a truth buried too deep, and a little girl who connected two broken hearts across an impossible divide. If you want to know how far this story reaches, hit that like button and comment your city below. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. The fluorescent lights of Harper Industries' top floor had long since dimmed by the time Daniel Wright finally allowed himself to lean back in his chair. The city sprawled below him, 1,000 points of light against the November darkness, each one representing someone heading home to warmth, to family, to the simple comfort of knowing where they belonged. Daniel didn't have that luxury anymore. He had Lily, and Lily was everything. But belonging? That was a word that had lost its meaning 3 years ago when Sarah walked out, leaving nothing but divorce papers and a 4-year-old daughter who still asked when mommy was coming home. He rubbed his eyes, the quarterly reports blurring into meaningless columns of numbers. It was past 8, which meant Mrs. Chen would be wondering when he'd pick up Lily. The elderly neighbor had become his lifeline, watching his daughter after school for rates he could barely afford, even with his senior analyst salary. Every late night at the office was another debt he couldn't repay, another moment of childhood he'd stolen from his little girl. Still here, right? Daniel's head snapped up. Evelyn Harper stood in his doorway, backlit by the hallway lights, her silhouette sharp and commanding even at this hour. His boss, the CEO of Harper Industries, the woman whose empire he'd been helping build for the past 2 years, always from a careful distance. Ms. Harper. He straightened, suddenly aware of his loosened tie and rolled shirt sleeves. I didn't realize you were still in the building. I could say the same. She stepped into his office, and the overhead lights caught the silver threading through her dark hair, the fine lines around her eyes that somehow made her more striking rather than less. Evelyn Harper was 42, though she carried it like armor, elegant, untouchable, and absolutely in control. It's after 8 on a Friday, Daniel. Don't you have somewhere to be? The use of his first name sent a small jolt through him. In 2 years, she'd never called him anything but Wright. Just finishing the meridian analysis, he said, gesturing vaguely at his computer. Wanted to have it ready for Monday's meeting. The meeting isn't until Tuesday. Evelyn moved closer, her heels clicking softly against the hardwood floor. She wore what she always wore, a perfectly tailored suit that cost more than his monthly rent, her dark hair pulled back in a style that was both severe and somehow soft. And I already know what the analysis will say because you're the best financial strategist I have. So why are you really still here? Daniel met her eyes, gray, sharp, and far too perceptive. There were rumors about Evelyn Harper, whispered in break rooms and happy hour bars, that she was cold, that she was brilliant, that she'd built her father's failing company into an empire through sheer force of will and had never let anyone close enough to see if there was a human being underneath the CEO. Daniel had always suspected there was more to her than the rumors. He just didn't know what. My daughter, he admitted. Lily. She's 7, and I'm already late picking her up from the neighbors, but this analysis can wait until Monday. Evelyn's expression didn't change, but something in her voice softened. Go home to your daughter, Daniel. He should have stood up, should have thanked her and left. Instead, he found himself saying, She asked me this morning if we could get a Christmas tree this weekend. A real one, not the fake one from Target. I had to tell her maybe, because I don't know if I can take Saturday off with the Meridian deal closing. Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Take Saturday. Take Sunday too. Consider it an early Christmas gift. Ms. Harper, I can't. You can and you will. She moved to the window, looking out at the city. Her reflection in the glass was ghostly, almost vulnerable. I built this company, Daniel. I know every profit margin, every market trend, every risk and opportunity. But you know what I don't know? She turned back to him. I don't know what it's like to watch a child grow up, to hear them ask for a Christmas tree, to be the person someone waits for at the end of the day. The admission hung between them, unexpected and raw. "I'm sorry," Daniel said quietly. "I didn't know you wanted children?" Evelyn laughed, but it was hollow. "I don't, not anymore. That ship sailed a long time ago, but sometimes—" She trailed off, then seemed to gather herself. "Sometimes I wonder what I sacrificed to be standing here." Daniel stood up slowly. They were closer now, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive. Close enough to see that her eyes weren't just gray, but flecked with green. "For what it's worth," he said, "you're an incredible CEO. This company, what you've built, it matters. It employs 3,000 people. It changes lives. Does it change yours?" The question was soft, almost tentative, not like Evelyn Harper at all. "Yes," Daniel answered honestly. "This job, this company, it's how I provide for Lily, how I give her stability. You gave me that chance when no one else would hire a single father with no MBA and a work history full of gaps." Evelyn studied him with those sharp gray eyes. "I didn't hire you because I felt sorry for you, Daniel. I hired you because you're brilliant at what you do. Because you see patterns no one else sees. Because when you present an analysis, you don't just show me the numbers. You show me the story behind them." "I learned that from you," he said. "Watching how you run this company. It's not just about profit, not to you. There's always a bigger picture." "Careful, right? You're making me sound almost human." "Maybe you are." The words were out before he could stop them. Evelyn's eyebrows rose, and Daniel felt heat climb up his neck. This was his boss, his CEO, the woman who could fire him with a word and destroy his carefully rebuilt life. But Evelyn didn't look angry. She looked considering. "I'm promoting you," she said abruptly. "Senior Vice President of Strategic Development, effective immediately. 40% raise, full benefits, and your own team. You'll report directly to me." Daniel's mind went blank. "What?" "You heard me. I'm tired of watching you kill yourself as a senior analyst when you should be shaping company strategy. I'm tired of watching talent waste away in middle management because they're too busy trying to survive to realize they should be thriving. Ms. Harper, I don't know what to say. Say yes, Daniel. Say you'll take the promotion and stop working late every night trying to prove you belong here. You already belong. You've belonged since the first analysis you put on my desk 2 years ago." "Yes." The word came out rough, overwhelmed. "Yes, thank you." Evelyn smiled, a real smile, not the corporate mask she wore in boardrooms. It transformed her face, made her look younger, almost hopeful. "Good. We'll make it official Monday. For now, go home to your daughter, get that Christmas tree. Be the father she needs you to be." Daniel grabbed his jacket, his briefcase, still reeling. At the door, he paused and looked back. Evelyn had returned to the window, her silhouette once again sharp and solitary against the city lights. "Ms. Harper." She turned. "Why now?" he asked. "Why promote me tonight?" Evelyn's smile faded, replaced by something sadder and more complicated. "Because life is short, Daniel, and some opportunities shouldn't be wasted." He wanted to ask what she meant, but she'd already turned back to the window, dismissing him. So he left, his mind spinning with the promotion, the raise, the strange intimacy of their conversation. He didn't know it would be the last normal conversation they'd ever have. Saturday morning arrived with Lily jumping on his bed at 6:30, all wild curls and boundless energy. "Daddy, Daddy, wake up! You promised! Christmas tree!" Daniel groaned, pulling his pillow over his head. "Lily Bear, it's Saturday. Saturday is for sleeping." "But you promised." She tugged at the pillow, her 7-year-old determination an unstoppable force. "You said if you didn't have to work, we could get a real tree. A big one. Please, Daddy?" He peeked out from under the pillow at her face, Sarah's eyes, his dimples, and a spirit entirely her own. How could he say no to that? Okay, but we're getting pancakes first." "With chocolate chips? Is there any other kind?" Lily squealed and ran from the room, already shouting about what color ornaments they should get. Daniel lay there for a moment, letting himself feel it, The simple joy of a Saturday morning with his daughter, no looming work deadlines, no crushing anxiety about making ends meet. The promotion would change things. Not overnight, but enough. Maybe they could move to a better apartment, one where Lily could have her own room instead of the tiny alcove he'd created with curtains. Maybe he could finally hire a proper nanny instead of relying on Mrs. Chen's kindness. Maybe he could breathe. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number. Enjoy your weekend, Daniel. You've earned it. E.H. Evelyn Harper had texted him. His CEO had his personal number and was checking in on his Saturday morning. That was unexpected. He typed back, getting a Christmas tree. Lily's already chosen one twice her height. The response came quickly. Of course she has. 7-year-olds have no concept of scale or room dimensions. Daniel smiled at his phone. Sounds like you're speaking from experience. There was a longer pause this time, then different kind of experience. But yes, enjoy your tree hunt. He should have left it there. Should have put his phone down and focused on his daughter. Instead, he wrote, "Thank you for the promotion, for last night, for seeing me." The typing indicator appeared and disappeared 3 times. Finally, "You were never invisible, Daniel. I just didn't let myself look too closely." Before he could parse that, Lily was back, dragging him toward the kitchen. "Daddy, come on!" The tree lot was a winter wonderland of pine and possibility. Lily ran from tree to tree, her breath misting in the cold air, declaring each one perfect before finding another even more perfect. Daniel followed behind, content to let her explore, his hands shoved deep in his jacket pockets. "This one," Lily finally declared, throwing her arms around a Douglas fir that was indeed twice her height. "It smells like Christmas." "It's pretty big, Lily Bear. I don't know if it'll fit in our apartment." "It'll fit. We'll make it fit. Please, Daddy?" The tree lot attendant, a college kid with a Santa hat, grinned. "She's got good taste. That's our finest Douglas fir." "Of course it is," Daniel muttered, already pulling out his wallet. Between the tree and the ornaments Lily had her heart set on, there went half his grocery budget. But the promotion started Monday, he reminded himself. They could afford Christmas this year. As the attendant tied the tree to the roof of his ancient Honda, Daniel's phone buzzed again. Did she choose the biggest tree they had? He laughed out loud, earning a curious look from Lily. "How did you know? Lucky guess. Or maybe I remember being 7 and thinking bigger was always better." Daniel hesitated, then typed, "What were you like at 7? The response took longer this time. Stubborn, lonely, already learning that wanting things too much meant losing them. "Your Lily sounds happier than I was." Something in those words made Daniel's chest tighten. He could picture it. A 7-year-old Evelyn, all sharp edges and solitary determination, already building walls that would take decades to become impenetrable. "She is happy," he wrote back. "I make sure of it. I know, it's one of the reasons I promoted you. Anyone who loves that fiercely deserves the resources to do it well." Daniel stared at his phone, trying to understand the woman on the other end, his CEO, his boss, the person who'd just handed him a future he'd barely dared to dream about. "Daddy, can we get hot chocolate?" Lily tugged at his sleeve. "With extra marshmallows?" "Sure thing, Lily Bear." As they drove home, the enormous tree protruding from his trunk, Lily chattering about ornament placement strategy, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Maybe things were finally turning around. Maybe the universe was finally done kicking him while he was down. He had no idea how wrong he was. Tit. Sunday evening, Daniel was wrestling the tree into its stand while Lily supervised from the couch when his phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" "Daniel, it's Evelyn." Her voice was different, tight, controlled. "I need a favor." He straightened up, pine needles in his hair. "Of course. What do you need?" "Can you come to the office tonight? I know it's Sunday, I know it's late, but She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. "I need to tell you something, before tomorrow, before it becomes official." "Is everything okay? Is it about the promotion?" "No, yes, I don't know." She laughed, but it sounded fragile. "Please, Daniel, it's important." He looked at Lily, who was arranging ornaments in careful rows on the coffee table. I need to get someone to watch my daughter. Bring her. The words came out quickly. Bring Lily. There's no one else here. She can play in the executive lounge. There's a TV, snacks. It'll be fine. That was strange. Evelyn Harper, who'd built her empire on sharp boundaries and professional distance, was inviting his 7-year-old daughter to the office on a Sunday night. Evelyn, what's going on? I just need to see you, please. The vulnerability in her voice decided him. Okay, we'll be there in 30 minutes. The Harper Industries building was eerily empty on Sunday night, just the night security guard who waved them through. Lily held Daniel's hand as they took the elevator to the top floor, her eyes wide. Is this where you work, Daddy? This is where I work. It's so fancy. Evelyn was waiting in her office, and Daniel felt a shock seeing her there. She wasn't wearing one of her usual power suits. Instead, she wore jeans and a soft sweater, her hair down around her shoulders. She looked younger, more human, almost nervous. Hi, she said, her eyes moving to Lily. You must be Lily. Lily, suddenly shy, pressed against Daniel's leg. Hello? I'm Evelyn. Your dad works for me. Though soon he'll be working with me, which is different and much better. She smiled, and it was warm, genuine. I heard you got a Christmas tree this weekend. Lily perked up. The biggest one. It touches the ceiling. I bet it's beautiful. We haven't decorated it yet. Daddy has to fix the lights first because they're all tangled. Lights are always tangled, Evelyn agreed solemnly. It's a law of physics. Would you like to watch something while your dad and I talk? I have a whole room with a big TV and probably terrible snacks I keep forgetting to replace. She led them to the executive lounge, and Lily's eyes went huge at the enormous television and the basket of candy bars and chips. Within minutes, she was settled with an animated movie and enough sugar to fuel a rocket launch. Back in Evelyn's office, Daniel closed the door and turned to face her. What's going on? Evelyn stood by her window, that familiar position, looking out at the dark city. I wanted to apologize for Friday night, for being too personal, for blurring lines that should stay clear. You didn't. I did. She turned to face him. I told you things I had no business telling you. I made you uncomfortable. I made comments about your personal life that weren't appropriate. Evelyn, you were fine. You were being human. You promoted me because I earned it, not because of anything that was said. I know, but I still wanted to apologize, and I wanted to tell you something else. She took a breath. After my father died and left me this company, I made a promise to myself I would never let anyone get close. I would never let emotion cloud judgment. I would never let the company become about anything other than success. That sounds lonely. It was. It is. She smiled sadly, but it kept me safe. It kept me focused, and it worked. The company quadrupled in value. We became an industry leader. I became the person my father always wanted me to be. But then you showed up 2 years ago with your resume and your gaps in employment and your honest answer when I asked why you needed this job. You said, because my daughter deserves a father who can provide for her, and I'll be damned if I let her down twice. Do you remember that? Daniel nodded slowly. I thought I'd blown the interview. You got the job because of it, because I saw someone who gave a damn about something other than themselves. And I've been watching you for 2 years, Daniel, watching you work yourself to death for a little girl who adores you, watching you be the kind of parent I never had, the kind of parent I never got to be. The last words came out barely above a whisper. Evelyn. Daniel moved closer. What aren't you telling me? She met his eyes, and hers were bright with unshed tears. I had a daughter once, 25 years ago. I was 17, alone, and terrified. I gave her up for adoption because I had no choice. And I've spent every day since then wondering where she is, what she looks like, if she's happy, if she ever thinks about the mother who wasn't brave enough to keep her. The confession hit Daniel like a physical blow. I had no idea. No one does. It's not exactly something you put in a corporate biography. She wiped at her eyes angrily. But watching you with Lily, seeing the way you love her so fiercely, so completely, it makes me ache for what I lost, what I gave away. You didn't give her away, Daniel said firmly. You made an impossible choice at 17. That's not the same thing. Isn't it? Evelyn's voice broke. She's out there somewhere, and I don't even know her name. I don't know if she's okay. I don't know if she needed me, and I wasn't there. Daniel closed the distance between them and did something that would have been unthinkable 3 days ago. He pulled Evelyn Harper into a hug. She stiffened for a moment, then collapsed against him, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "I'm sorry," she whispered against his shoulder. "I'm so sorry. This is completely inappropriate. Stop apologizing for being human." Daniel held her carefully, aware of how fragile she felt in his arms. "You're allowed to hurt. You're allowed to grieve something you lost." They stood like that for a long moment, CEO and employee, boss and confidant, two people carrying losses that never quite healed. When Evelyn finally pulled back, her mascara was smudged and her eyes were red, but she looked more real than Daniel had ever seen her. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for not judging me, for not seeing me differently." "I do see you differently," Daniel admitted, "but not worse. Better. More complete." Evelyn laughed wetly. "You're good at this, you know. The emotional intelligence thing. It's why you're wasted in pure finance." "Is that why the promotion is strategic development? So I can use my feelings in corporate planning?" "Something like that." She wiped her eyes and attempted to fix her hair. "I should let you go. Lily's probably wondering where you are." "Evelyn," Daniel caught her hand. "Thank you for trusting me with this. For being honest." She looked down at their joined hands, then up at his face. "Daniel, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "That question I asked Friday, about your bed being big enough for two, that was completely out of line, and It wasn't," Daniel interrupted. "It surprised me, but it wasn't out of line." "Then can I ask it again? Differently?" She took a breath. "If circumstances were different, if I weren't your boss and you weren't rebuilding your life, and neither of us had complications that make relationships impossible, would you want to know me? The real me, not just the CEO?" Daniel's heart kicked against his ribs. This was dangerous territory. This was his boss, his promotion, his daughter's stability, all balanced on the edge of a question he didn't know how to answer. But Evelyn was looking at him with those gray-green eyes, vulnerable and honest and achingly hopeful, and Daniel found himself answering with the truth. "Yes," he said simply. "I would want to know you. I already do want to know you. But the complications are still there. I have Lily. You have the company. I'm about to become your SVP, which means there are power dynamics and HR policies and 100 reasons why this is a terrible idea." "I know," Evelyn smiled sadly. "I know all of that. But if I've learned anything in 42 years, it's that some connections are rare. Some people come into your life and make you remember what it feels like to be seen, to be known." "Is that what this is?" "I don't know. Maybe. Probably." She squeezed his hand once, then let go. "Or maybe I'm just lonely and you're kind and I'm projecting decades of regret onto the first person who's treated me like a human being in years." "You're not that," Daniel said firmly. "You're brilliant and strong and you've built something incredible. And yes, you're lonely, but so am I. And maybe," he paused, weighing his next words, "maybe that connection you're talking about, maybe I feel it too." The air between them felt electric, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. "We can't," Evelyn said, but she didn't move away. "I know. It would be completely inappropriate. Absolutely. We'd both regret it. Probably." They stood there, inches apart, both of them aware they were standing on the edge of something that could ruin everything they'd built. "Daddy?" They sprang apart like teenagers caught by a parent. Lily stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "The movie's over. Can we go home now?" "Yes, sweetheart. Absolutely." Daniel crossed to his daughter, hyper-aware of Evelyn watching them. "Did you have fun?" "Uh-huh. Miss Evelyn has good snacks." Lily looked up at Evelyn shyly. "Thank you for the candy." "You're very welcome." Evelyn crouched down to Lily's level. "Your dad tells me you're quite the Christmas tree expert." Lily giggled. "I just like Christmas." "Me too," Evelyn said softly. "It's the most magical time of year." She reached out and gently brushed a curl from Lily's face. and something in the gesture made Daniel's breath catch. There was such tenderness there, such longing. "We should go," he said quietly. "It's past her bedtime." Evelyn stood, the mask of CEO sliding back into place. "Of course. I'll see you tomorrow, Daniel. We'll make your promotion official." "Thank you for everything." At the elevator, Lily waved back at Evelyn, who stood in her office doorway watching them leave. Just before the doors closed, Daniel saw her lift her hand in a small wave, and the expression on her face was so sad, so full of barely suppressed longing, that it physically hurt to look at. "Daddy?" Lily said as they descended. "Is Miss Evelyn lonely?" "What makes you ask that?" "She looked sad when she looked at us." Lily leaned against him sleepily. "She needs a family, I think." Out of the mouths of babes, Daniel thought. "Maybe she does, Lily Bear." "Could we be her family?" The question was innocent, simple in the way only a 7-year-old could be. Daniel had no answer that wouldn't be complicated, so he just kissed the top of her head and said, "Maybe someday." He had no idea how prophetic those words would be. Monday morning, Daniel arrived at the office to chaos. Police cars, ambulances, employees clustered outside the building, crying and talking in hushed, frantic voices. Daniel grabbed the first person he recognized, Linda from accounting. "What happened?" Linda's face was pale, her eyes red. "It's Ms. Harper. Daniel, she collapsed in her office early this morning. They think it was a stroke or an aneurysm or something. Her voice broke. "They're saying she didn't make it." The world tilted sideways. "What?" "I'm so sorry. I know you work closely with her. They're saying she was here all night. Security found her at 5 a.m. when he did his rounds." Daniel's ears were ringing. "That's not possible. I saw her last night. She was fine. She was fine. She'd been fine. Sad but fine. Human but fine. And now she was dead." "They're asking senior leadership to gather in the conference room," Linda was saying. "You're SVP now, so they'll probably need you." Daniel moved through the rest of that morning in a daze. The conference room, the board members with their grave faces. The announcement that Evelyn Harper, CEO and visionary, had died suddenly at 42 years old. Suspected aneurysm. No warning, no chance. Someone, the CFO maybe, said something about interim leadership and continuity and making sure clients knew the company was stable. Daniel heard none of it. He could only see Evelyn standing in her office, tears on her face, asking him if he'd want to know her if circumstances were different. "Yes," he'd said. "I would want to know you." Now he never would. His phone buzzed during the meeting, a notification from the company email system. He almost ignored it, but something made him look. Message from Evelyn Harper, scheduled for delivery. With shaking hands, Daniel opened it. "Daniel, if you're reading this, something went wrong. I have a condition, a cerebral cavernous malformation they found 2 years ago. Surgery is too risky, and medication can only do so much. My doctors say I could live 20 more years or collapse tomorrow. I've been preparing for tomorrow. There are things I need you to know, things I should have told you last night but didn't have the courage for. My lawyer has instructions to deliver a package to your address. Please read it. Please understand. And please take care of my legacy, both the company and something more important. You asked me once what I sacrificed to be standing here. The answer is everything, Daniel. But in the last 2 years, watching you with your daughter, I've realized some of what I lost might not be lost after all. Thank you for seeing me, for making my last months less lonely, for reminding me what it felt like to hope. Take care of Lily. She's lucky to have you." With more affection than I ever got to show, Evelyn Daniel read the email 3 times, his vision blurring. She'd known she might die at any moment, and she'd spent Sunday night telling him about her daughter, about her loneliness, about the connection between them that neither of them could act on. She'd asked him if his bed was big enough for 2, and he'd said only if she was beside him, and now she never would be. The lawyer's package arrived that evening, delivered by courier to his apartment. Inside was a sealed letter addressed to Daniel in Evelyn's precise handwriting, along with a smaller sealed envelope marked "For Lily, when she's old enough to understand." Daniel waited until Lily was asleep, then opened his letter with trembling hands. The words inside would shatter his world and rebuild it in ways he couldn't begin to imagine. Daniel, you're going to think I'm crazy. You might be right, but I need you to understand something that I only confirmed 3 months ago, though I've suspected it for over a year. Lily is my daughter. Not figuratively, not emotionally, biologically. The daughter I gave up for adoption 25 years ago gave birth to Lily 7 years ago, then died in a car accident when Lily was 3 months old. The adoption records, once I finally got access to them, led me to Lily's father, your ex-wife's cousin, who raised Lily for 9 months before dying of cancer. Then the trail led to Sarah, who married you and convinced you to adopt Lily together. When your marriage fell apart, you got custody because Sarah never really wanted to be a mother. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Lily isn't just the daughter of your heart. She's my granddaughter, my blood. The only piece of the child I gave away that still exists in this world. I hired you because you were qualified. I kept you because you were brilliant. But I promoted you because I couldn't bear the thought of you struggling when I had the power to help you, when I had the power to help her. I don't know if I had the right to keep this secret from you. I told myself I was protecting her, protecting you, protecting everyone. But the truth is, I was a coward. I was afraid you'd think I was manipulating you, afraid you'd take Lily and leave, afraid that if I reached for this connection, it would shatter like everything else I've ever loved. Last night, when I held you and cried about the daughter I lost, I was crying for Lily's mother, for Emily. Yes, I know her name now. I know she grew up loved, became a teacher, married young, had a daughter she named Lily after her favorite flower. I know she died too young, leaving a baby behind, and I wasn't there to help her. But I can be here for Lily. Or I could have been, if I'd been braver, if I'd had more time. The company is yours now, Daniel. The board will appoint you interim CEO. I've already arranged it. You have the vision and the heart to run Harper Industries the way it should be run. But more importantly, you have Lily. Take care of her. Love her the way I never got to love her mother. And someday, when she's old enough, give her the letter I've enclosed. Let her know that her grandmother watched over her, even if she never knew it. Let her know she was wanted, loved, seen. And Daniel, that question I asked you, about whether you'd want to know me if things were different. Your answer meant more to me than you'll ever understand. It meant I didn't spend my entire life invisible. It meant I was seen just once by someone who mattered. Thank you for that gift, and I'm sorry I don't get to explore what we might have been. All my love, Evelyn. Daniel dropped the letter, his hand shaking so hard he could barely hold it. This wasn't possible. This couldn't be real. But he knew it was. Knew it with a certainty that made his chest ache. Lily was Evelyn's granddaughter. The promotion, the kindness, the way Evelyn had looked at his daughter with such longing. It all made horrible, perfect sense. And Evelyn had died knowing this truth, carrying it alone, too afraid to share it, even as she stood in her office, wanting to reach out and not knowing how. Daniel walked to Lily's alcove and looked down at his sleeping daughter. Her curls spread across her pillow, her small chest rising and falling with peaceful breath. His Lily bear, his whole world, Evelyn's granddaughter. He thought about the letter in the other envelope, the one meant for Lily when she was old enough. The words of a grandmother who'd never gotten to be one. He thought about Evelyn standing in her office saying, "Some connections are rare." She'd been talking about Lily all along. Daniel sank down on the edge of the bed and let himself cry. For Evelyn, for Emily, for all the lost chances and broken connections. For a love story that never got to start because time ran out too soon. But most of all, he cried for Lily, who'd been watched over by a grandmother she'd never know, who'd been loved from a distance by a woman who'd given up everything to build an empire, but never stopped wondering about the daughter she'd lost. "I promise," he whispered to his sleeping daughter, to Evelyn's ghost, to the universe that had brought them together too late. "I promise I'll take care of her. I promise I'll tell her she was wanted. I promise she'll never doubt she was loved." It was the only promise he had left to give, and it was the promise that would shape everything that came after. The funeral was held on a gray Thursday that felt like the world itself was mourning. Daniel stood at the back of the cathedral, Lily's small hand clutched in his, and watched as 3,000 employees, countless business partners, and a who's who of the corporate world filed in to pay their respects to a woman most of them had never really known. The eulogy was delivered by the board chairman, a silver-haired man named Richard Castellane, who spoke eloquently about Evelyn's vision, her brilliance, her transformation of Harper Industries from a struggling manufacturing company into a diversified empire. He talked about quarterly earnings and market share and revolutionary business strategies. He made her sound like a force of nature, untouchable and unknowable. He never mentioned that she'd been lonely, that she'd cried in Daniel's arms 4 days before her death, that she'd given up a daughter and spent 25 years looking for her, that she'd watched her granddaughter from a distance, loving her in secret, too afraid to reach out.
"Daddy, why are you sad?" Lily whispered, tugging at his hand. Daniel looked down at his daughter, at Evelyn's granddaughter, and felt the weight of secrets pressing down on him. "Miss Evelyn was important to me, Lily Bear. I'm going to miss her." "Will she have Christmas in heaven?" The innocence of the question nearly broke him. "I think so, sweetheart." "Good." She said she liked Christmas. After the service, Richard Castellane found Daniel in the crowd. "Right, isn't it? Evelyn's new SVP." "Yes, sir." "The board needs to meet with you tomorrow morning, 9 sharp. There are matters to discuss regarding interim leadership and the transition plan." Richard's eyes were sharp, assessing. "Evelyn left very specific instructions about the company's future. I assume you're aware of your role in those plans." Daniel thought about the letter in his briefcase, the impossible truth it contained. "I'm aware." "Good. Don't be late. The vultures are already circling, and we need to show a united front." Richard's gaze dropped to Lily, and something flickered in his expression. "Lovely daughter you have." "Thank you. Evelyn mentioned her once, said you were a devoted father, that it was one of your greatest strengths." He paused, then added quietly, "She had good instincts about people. Trust them, even now." Before Daniel could respond, Richard had disappeared into the crowd, leaving him with more questions than answers. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Daniel spread out the documents that had come with Evelyn's letter. Her will, trust documents, corporate succession plans, and buried in the middle, a sealed file marked Private Investigation, Emily Harper Reed. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside were photographs. A young woman with dark hair and gray-green eyes, Evelyn's eyes, holding a baby wrapped in a yellow blanket. More photos of the woman pregnant, glowing with joy. Then older photos, teenage years, a high school graduation, a wedding, the progression of a life that had ended too soon. Emily Harper Reed, born to unknown parents and adopted by Thomas and Margaret Reed of Portland, Oregon. Grew up loved. Became an elementary school teacher. Married David Chen at 23, gave birth to Lily Chen at 25. Died in a car accident 3 months later when a drunk driver ran a red light. Daniel traced the photos with his finger, seeing pieces of Lily and Emily's smile, in the way she tilted her head, in her hands. His daughter looked like her mother, who looked like Evelyn, creating a chain of connection that spanned generations. There were adoption records too, heavily redacted but painstakingly reconstructed. Evelyn had spent years, and clearly a fortune, tracking down her daughter's information. The file showed dead ends and breakthroughs, private investigators, and sealed court records slowly pried open. The most recent entries were dated just 4 months ago, when Evelyn had finally confirmed what she'd suspected. A sticky note in Evelyn's handwriting was attached to the last page. "Found her. Found them both. Now what do I do?" Daniel could almost hear the anguish in those words. Evelyn had spent years searching, and when she finally found what she was looking for, she'd been paralyzed by fear. Fear of rejection, fear of disrupting Lily's life, fear of being vulnerable. So she'd stayed silent and died with the truth locked inside her. The phone rang, making Daniel jump. He checked the caller ID, unknown number, and almost didn't answer. Then some instinct made him pick up. "Mr. Wright, this is Catherine Mills. I was Evelyn Harper's personal attorney." "Ms. Mills, how can I help you?" "I'm calling because Evelyn left specific instructions for me to contact you after her death. There are additional documents she wanted you to have, separate from the letter. Can you come to my office tomorrow afternoon, say 2 o'clock? Daniel thought about the board meeting in the morning. "That should work." "Excellent. And Mr. Wright, bring your daughter if you can. Evelyn left something for her too." The call ended before Daniel could ask what that meant. The board meeting the next morning was exactly as brutal as Daniel expected.
12 men and 3 women sat around a massive mahogany table in Harper Industries' main conference room, and every single one of them looked at Daniel like he was an upstart who'd somehow conned his way into consideration. "Let me be clear," said Marcus Webb, head of the acquisitions division and the most vocal of Daniel's detractors. "You've been with this company for 2 years. 2 years. I've been here for 15. Richard's been here for 20. And Evelyn's gone and recommended you as interim CEO in her succession documents?" "I'm as surprised as you are," Daniel said honestly. "Are you?" Marcus leaned forward. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you got pretty close to our late CEO in a very short time. Close enough to secure a massive promotion just days before her death. Close enough to be named her successor over people with actual experience running a company." The implication hung in the air like poison. Daniel felt his face heat with anger, but Richard Castellane spoke before he could respond. "That's enough, Marcus. Evelyn's wishes were clear and legally binding. Daniel Wright becomes interim CEO for a period of no less than 6 months while we evaluate long-term leadership." Those were her exact words, and they're not up for debate. "But why him?" This came from Patricia Chen, the CFO. "No offense, Wright, but you're a financial analyst. A good one, granted, but you've never run so much as a department." "Strategic development isn't exactly a department," Daniel pointed out. "It's a division that was going to oversee 3 departments and shape company-wide policy. A division that didn't even exist until 5 days ago. A promotion that conveniently positioned you for this exact scenario." Marcus wasn't letting it go. "Come on, Richard, you have to see how this looks. I see a woman who built this company from nothing and earned the right to choose her successor." Richard's voice was steel. "I also see a board that's required by corporate charter to honor her wishes unless we can prove legal incompetence or malfeasance. Can anyone here prove either?" Silence. "Then Daniel Wright is our interim CEO, effective immediately. We'll reconvene in 6 months to evaluate permanent leadership." Richard stood, signaling the meeting's end. "And Marcus? If I hear another implication that Daniel secured this position through anything other than merit and Evelyn's confidence in his abilities, you'll be looking for employment elsewhere. Am I clear?" Marcus's face was red, but he nodded. As the board members filed out, Richard gestured for Daniel to stay. When they were alone, the older man sighed heavily. "That could have gone better. They think I slept my way into this job. They think they understand Evelyn's decision-making process, which means they know nothing." Richard poured himself a whiskey from the conference room bar, despite it being 9:30 in the morning. "Evelyn spent 2 years watching you, right? Watching how you worked, how you thought, how you treated people. She told me 6 months ago that you had something the rest of us had lost: humanity. She said you remembered that numbers on spreadsheets represented real people with real lives." "She said that?" "She said a lot of things in her final months, about the company, about legacy, about what mattered when you knew your time was limited." Richard took a long drink. "She also said you were the only person she'd met in 20 years who made her feel like a human being instead of a profit margin. For what it's worth, I think that's why she chose you. Not for your resume, but for who you are." Daniel's throat tightened. "I wish she'd told me about the condition, about how much time she thought she had left. Would it have changed anything?" "I don't know. Maybe. I could have—" He stopped, unsure what he could have done. "I could have told her that the connection wasn't just in her head. That I felt it too." Richard studied him for a long moment. "She knew, right? Trust me. She knew." At 2 o'clock, Daniel and Lily sat in Catherine Mill's elegant downtown office, surrounded by mahogany furniture and leather-bound law books. The attorney was a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a professional demeanor that somehow managed to be warm. "Thank you for coming," she said, shaking Daniel's hand before crouching down to Lily's level. "And you must be Lily. Your grandmother left something very special for you." Lily looked confused. "My grandma's in Florida." Catherine glanced at Daniel, who nodded slightly. "A different grandmother, sweetheart. Someone who cared about you very much." She opened a locked drawer and pulled out a small wooden box inlaid with mother of pearl. "Evelyn wanted you to have this when you were old enough to appreciate it. Your father will keep it safe until then." Inside the box was a gold locket on a delicate chain. Catherine opened it to reveal two tiny photographs, one of Emily as a young woman and one of Lily at her school picture day from last year. "How did she get that?" Daniel asked, his voice rough. Evelyn had her ways. She wanted Lily to know that someone was watching over her, even if that someone couldn't be present. Catherine handed Lily a sealed envelope. "And this is a letter for you, to be opened on your 18th birthday. Your father will keep it safe." Lily held the envelope carefully, reverently. "What does it say?" "I don't know, sweetheart, but I think it will be very important to you someday." Catherine turned to Daniel and produced a thick manila folder. "And for you, Mr. Wright, Evelyn's complete estate plan. She's left the majority of her personal assets in trust for Lily, to be distributed when she turns 25. You're named as trustee and guardian with full authority to make decisions in Lily's best interest." Daniel stared at the folder. "That's not necessary. I can provide for Lily. The salary from the interim CEO position is more than enough. This isn't about necessity. It's about legacy." Catherine's expression softened. Evelyn knew she couldn't be a grandmother to Lily in the traditional sense, but she wanted to ensure Lily would have every opportunity, every advantage, education, travel, security. The trust is substantial, nearly $20 million. The number hit Daniel like a fist. "That's insane. I can't accept. It's not for you to accept or refuse. It's Lily's inheritance from her grandmother. You're simply the steward of it until she's old enough to manage it herself." Catherine slid another document across the desk. "There's also this, Evelyn's personal journals, going back 20 years. She wanted you to have them, to understand her journey to finding Lily, to understand why she made the choices she made." Daniel looked at the leather-bound journals stacked in a box beside Catherine's desk. A lifetime of thoughts, fears, hopes, and regrets, all laid bare for him to read. "Why me?" he asked quietly. "Why trust me with all of this?" Catherine smiled. "Because in Evelyn's words, you were the only person who saw me clearly and loved me anyway. Her words, Mr. Wright, not mine." The word loved hung in the air like a living thing. Daniel hadn't loved Evelyn, not really, not yet, but he could have. Given time, given the chance to know her beyond the office walls, he absolutely could have. And somehow, Evelyn had known that too. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Daniel opened the first of Evelyn's journals. The entry was dated 20 years earlier, shortly after her father's death and her ascension to CEO. "Today, I became my father's daughter in every way that matters. I put on the suit, spoke the words, made the promises. But underneath, I'm still the terrified 17-year-old girl who gave away her baby because she had no other choice. I'm still the woman who wakes up at 3 a.m. wondering if my daughter is okay, if she's loved, if she ever thinks about the mother who couldn't keep her. I don't know if I'll ever find her." The adoption was closed, the record sealed. My parents made sure of that. They said it would be easier for everyone if I just forgot. But how do you forget a piece of your own heart? How do you move forward when you left half of yourself behind? So I'll build this company into something magnificent. I'll prove to my father's ghost that I was worthy of his name. And maybe, someday, if my daughter ever comes looking, she'll find someone she can be proud of, even if she never knows who I am. Daniel read through years of entries, watching Evelyn's evolution from a wounded young woman into the formidable CEO he'd known. But the pain never quite disappeared. Every few months, there would be an entry about Emily, about the what-ifs and maybes, about the dreams Evelyn had of reunion. Then, 3 years ago, the entries changed tone. "I hired a new analyst today. Daniel Wright, single father, recently divorced, struggling to make ends meet while raising a daughter he clearly adores. I wasn't going to give him the job. His resume has gaps and his credentials are good, but not exceptional. But then he told me why he needed it, and I saw something in his eyes I recognized. Desperation, yes, but also love. The fierce, uncompromising love of a parent who would do anything for their child. I gave him the job because I wanted to know what that kind of love looks like up close, because I never got to experience it myself." Daniel's hands trembled as he turned pages, reading Evelyn's observations about his work, his dedication, his relationship with Lily. She'd been watching him for 2 years, not just as an employee, but as a window into the kind of parent she'd never gotten to be. Then, 18 months ago, everything shifted. I did something today that was possibly insane. I hired a private investigator to search for Emily again. The technology has improved, the databases are more comprehensive, and I have more money than I did in my 20s. I don't know what I'll do if I find her. I don't know if I have the right to disrupt her life after 25 years, but I can't keep living with this hole in my heart. I need to know if she's okay. I need to know if I was right to let her go. The entries over the next year chronicled Evelyn's search, the dead ends and small victories, the growing certainty that she was close to answers. Then, 11 months ago, the entry that changed everything. Emily is dead, my daughter is dead, and I never got to know her. She died 3 years ago in a car accident, leaving behind a husband and an infant daughter. I'm a grandmother, and I never knew. I'll never know Emily's voice, her laugh, her dreams. I'll never get to apologize for giving her up or explain why I thought it was the right choice. She's gone, and I'm too late. But her daughter is still here. Lily, named after Emily's favorite flower. And somehow, impossibly, I already know her. She's Daniel Wright's daughter. The little girl he talks about constantly, the reason he works so hard, the light of his entire world. My granddaughter is in my life, and she has no idea who I am. Daniel had to stop reading, his vision blurred with tears. He could feel Evelyn's anguish radiating off the page, the horrible irony of having searched for her daughter, only to find her too late, then discovering her granddaughter was already part of her world. The subsequent entries detailed Evelyn's internal struggle. Should she tell Daniel? Should she reveal herself to Lily? What right did she have to disrupt their lives? What if Daniel thought she'd hired him because of Lily, not despite her? What if her revelation destroyed the stability Lily needed? I watch Daniel with Lily, and I see everything I should have been: patient, present, wholly devoted. He gave up career advancement to be at her school plays. He works himself to exhaustion to give her a good life. He's exactly the kind of parent I wish I could have been to Emily. So how can I disrupt that? How can I insert myself into their lives and risk destabilizing the only family Lily's ever really known? Daniel already lost one partner. Lily already lost her biological mother. I won't be the next person who leaves them broken. But God, it hurts. It hurts to see Lily and not be able to tell her. It hurts to watch Daniel struggle when I could help, not as an employer, but as family. It hurts to be so close to the connection I've craved my entire adult life and know I can never reach for it. 3 months ago, Evelyn's entries took on new urgency. The doctors say my condition is worsening. The medication isn't working as well. I might have years, or I might have weeks. There's no way to know until it happens. I need to make arrangements. I need to protect Lily and Daniel. If I die without telling them the truth, they'll never understand why I promoted him, why I left Lily a trust fund, why any of this matters. They'll think I was manipulating them or playing some kind of corporate game. But if I tell them now while I'm alive, I risk everything. Daniel might think I only hired him because of Lily. He might question every promotion, every kind word, every moment we've shared. And I can't bear the thought of him looking at me with suspicion instead of the warmth I've come to crave. So I'll write it all down. I'll leave letters, instructions, explanations. I'll give them the truth after I'm gone, when it can't hurt anyone anymore. When Daniel can read my words and understand that, yes, I kept secrets, but they came from love, not manipulation. When Lily can grow up knowing she had a grandmother who watched over her even if she couldn't be present. It's cowardice, probably. But it's the best I can do. The final entry was dated 6 days ago, the Sunday before Evelyn died. I almost told him tonight. Daniel came to the office with Lily, and I held my granddaughter's hand, and I was so close to saying the words, "She's mine. She's Emily's. We're family." But then I looked at Daniel's face, at the trust there, at the connection building between us, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't risk tainting that connection with the revelation that I've been keeping this massive secret for months. What if he never forgave me? What if he took Lily and left, and I spent my final days knowing I'd destroyed the only real relationship I'd built in years? So I told him about Emily without telling him about Lily. I cried on his shoulder and let him comfort me, and when he asked if I'd want to know him if circumstances were different, I almost laughed. Circumstances are already impossible. I'm his boss, his granddaughter's employer, a woman with a ticking time bomb in her brain who's been lying by omission for months. But I told him yes anyway. Yes, I'd want to know him. Yes, I feel the connection too. Yes, if the world were different, I'd take that chance. I think he would too. And that's the worst part. Knowing that in another timeline, another universe, we might have had something real. We might have been a family, not by blood, but by choice. I might have gotten to be Lily's grandmother, openly and honestly, with Daniel beside me, understanding and forgiving. But that's not this timeline. This is the one where I'm too broken, too scared, too late. This is the one where I'll die with the truth locked inside me and hope that my letters explain what my living voice never could. If I'm lucky, Daniel will forgive me. If I'm very lucky, Lily will someday understand. And if there's any justice in the universe, they'll both know that every choice I made out of love. Imperfect, cowardly, too late love. But love nonetheless. Tomorrow, I'll make my promotion of Daniel official. I'll set the succession plan in motion. I'll make sure that when I'm gone, they're both protected, financially, professionally, emotionally. It's the last gift I can give them, and I pray it's enough. There were no more entries after that. Daniel closed the journal and sat in the dark living room, tears streaming down his face. Evelyn had loved them, both of them, in the only way she knew how. From a distance, through actions instead of words, protecting them even as she denied herself the connection she desperately wanted. She died knowing Daniel could have loved her back, died knowing Lily was her granddaughter, died with the words unsaid because she was too afraid of losing what little she had. I forgive you, Daniel whispered to the empty room, to Evelyn's ghost, to the universe that had brought them together just to tear them apart. I forgive you, and I wish to God you'd told me. I wish we'd had more time. I wish Lily could have known you were her grandmother. I wish so many things that will never happen now. His phone buzzed. Another email, this time from Richard Castellane. Right. Forgot to mention this morning. Evelyn left instructions for her memorial service next month. Private, family only. She specifically named you and Lily as attendees, thought you should know you were on her family list. RC family. Evelyn had claimed them as family in her final instructions, even though only Daniel would ever know why. He walked to Lily's alcove and looked down at his sleeping daughter, at Evelyn's granddaughter. The locket Catherine had given her lay on the nightstand, catching the light from the hallway. Your grandmother loved you, he whispered. She loved you so much she didn't know how to tell you. And I promise, Lily Bear, I promise you'll grow up knowing that. You'll grow up knowing you were wanted, you were watched over, you were cherished by someone who never got to hold you, but held you in her heart anyway. It was a promise he'd made before, standing in this exact spot just days after Evelyn's death. But now it carried new weight, new understanding. Now it wasn't just a promise to a lost woman, but a sacred covenant with family. In the morning, Daniel would return to Harper Industries as interim CEO and face the doubters and the vultures. He'd protect Evelyn's legacy and guide her company with the humanity she'd valued. He'd make decisions that honored her vision while forging his own path forward. But tonight, he was just a father sitting in the dark, grieving a love that never got its chance, and a family that existed only on paper and in secret. Tomorrow he'd be strong. Tonight he let himself break. And in the silence of his apartment, with Lily sleeping peacefully and Evelyn's journals stacked on his coffee table, Daniel Wright understood what Evelyn had written about in her final entry. Love wasn't always perfect. Sometimes it was messy and scared and too late. Sometimes it was expressed through promotions and trust funds and letters left behind. Sometimes it was a CEO watching her granddaughter from a distance and a single father working himself to death, both of them trying to do right by a little girl who connected them in ways they barely understood. It wasn't the love story anyone would choose, but it was theirs, complicated and impossible and achingly real. And somehow, despite everything, it was enough to build something lasting, even if Evelyn never got to see what they'd build in her name. The first 3 months as interim CEO passed in a blur of boardroom battles and late-night strategy sessions. Daniel threw himself into the work with an intensity that surprised even him, driven by a need to prove that Evelyn's faith in him hadn't been misplaced. Every decision he made, every policy he implemented, he measured against a single question.
Would this honor what she built? Marcus Webb continued to undermine him at every opportunity, circulating whispers about nepotism and improper relationships. Patricia Chen watched him with skeptical eyes during financial reviews, waiting for him to stumble. But Richard Castellane remained his unexpected ally, running interference with the board and offering guidance when Daniel felt out of his depth. "You're doing better than you think," Richard told him one evening after a particularly brutal quarterly review. "Evelyn knew what she was doing when she chose you." "Did she?" Daniel stared at the city lights through his office window, Evelyn's old office, though he still couldn't think of it as his own. "Or did she choose me because I was raising her granddaughter and she couldn't figure out how else to protect us?" Richard was quiet for a long moment. "You know, it wasn't a question." Daniel turned to face him. "You knew too. Not until after she died. Catherine Mills showed me the letters, the investigation files. Evelyn wanted someone on the board to understand the full picture in case questions arose about her estate distribution." Richard poured 2 glasses of whiskey and handed one to Daniel. "For what it's worth, I think she chose you for both reasons. Because you were raising Lily, yes, but also because you were the kind of leader this company needs. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. The board doesn't see it that way. Half of them think I slept my way into this position, and the other half think I'm a charity case Evelyn felt sorry for. Let them think what they want. In 6 months, they'll vote on permanent leadership. Until then, just keep doing what you're doing, making smart decisions and treating people like human beings instead of assets." That's what she wanted. Daniel took a drink, letting the whiskey burn down his throat. "I read her journals. All of them. She was in pain for so long, Richard. She spent 25 years searching for her daughter, and when she finally found her, Emily was already gone. Then she found Lily and couldn't figure out how to bridge that gap. She died knowing I was right there, that we could have been something, and she was too scared to reach for it. Regret is a heavy burden. Evelyn carried more than her share." Richard stood to leave, then paused at the door. "But she also left you something most people never get: complete honesty. Every fear, every hope, every terrible choice laid bare in those journals. That's a gift, right? Don't waste it by second-guessing her motives. Just honor what she built and take care of that little girl. That's all she wanted." After Richard left, Daniel opened his desk drawer and pulled out a small video file Catherine Mills had given him 2 weeks earlier. He'd watched it once and hadn't been able to bring himself to watch it again. But tonight, alone in Evelyn's office with the weight of her legacy pressing down on him, he needed to hear her voice. He plugged in his headphones and pressed play. Evelyn's face filled the screen, and Daniel's breath caught. The video had been recorded in this very office, probably late at night, judging by the darkness beyond the windows. She looked tired, older than he remembered, her hair down around her shoulders instead of pulled back in its usual severe style. "Hello, Daniel." Her voice was soft, almost tentative. "If you're watching this, then I'm gone, and you've read my letters. You know about Emily, about Lily, about all the secrets I kept, and you probably hate me a little bit, which I understand. I'd hate me too." She paused, gathering herself. "I want to explain something that I couldn't put into words on paper. I want you to understand why I did what I did, even if you can never forgive it. When I was 17, I got pregnant by a boy who didn't love me, in a family that valued reputation over everything else. My parents gave me 2 choices: abort the baby or give it up for adoption. I chose adoption because I thought it was the merciful option. I thought my daughter would have a better life with parents who actually wanted her, who were ready for her, who could give her the stability I never had. For 25 years, I told myself I made the right choice. I built this company, achieved everything my father said I couldn't, proved I was more than the scared teenager who disappointed him. But late at night, in the quiet moments, I wondered. I wondered if my daughter was happy, if she thought about me, if she hated me for giving her away. Then I hired you, and I watched you raise Lily with this fierce, uncomplicated love, and it broke something open inside me. I started searching again, more aggressively this time. I needed to know if Emily had that kind of love, if the parents who adopted her had given her what I couldn't. When I finally found the records, when I learned Emily had died 3 years earlier, I felt like someone had ripped out my heart. My daughter was gone, and I'd never gotten to tell her I was sorry.
I'd never gotten to explain that giving her up wasn't about not wanting her. It was about being too young and too scared to know what wanting even meant. Evelyn's voice cracked, and she wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. Daniel wanted to reach through the screen to comfort her the way he had that night in her office. But then I found Lily. I found records of Emily's daughter, traced her through the foster system and your ex-wife's adoption, and I realized my granddaughter was alive, more than alive. She was thriving. She had a father who loved her completely, who sacrificed everything to give her a good life. And somehow, impossibly, she was already part of my world. I should have told you immediately. I know that. But I was terrified, Daniel. Terrified you'd think I'd only hired you because of Lily. Terrified you'd take her and leave, and I'd lose the only connection I had to Emily. Terrified that if I reached for what I wanted, it would shatter like everything else I'd ever loved. So I watched from a distance. I promoted you because you deserved it, yes, but also because it meant I could help provide for Lily without it seeming strange. I created that trust fund so she'd have opportunities, security, everything Emily never got from me. And I let myself imagine what it would be like if you knew the truth. If we could be a family, not traditional, not simple, but real. That night in my office, when you held me while I cried, I almost told you everything. But then I looked at your face, at the trust there, and I couldn't bear to taint it with my secrets. I couldn't risk losing the one genuine connection I'd built in years. She took a shaky breath. I want you to know something, Daniel. That question I asked you about whether you'd want to know me if circumstances were different, your answer meant everything to me. Because for the first time in my adult life, someone saw me. Not the CEO, not the success story, not the ice queen everyone thinks I am. Just me. Evelyn. The woman who made terrible mistakes and carried them like stones. Who built empires to fill the emptiness inside. Who loved from a distance because she'd forgotten how to do it up close. You saw me, and you didn't turn away. You said yes, you'd want to know me. And that yes, Daniel, that was the most precious gift anyone has ever given me. It meant I wasn't invisible. It meant I mattered as more than a profit margin or a quarterly report. It meant that even broken, even flawed, even dying, I was still worth knowing. I'm sorry I didn't get to explore what we might have been. I'm sorry I kept secrets that hurt you. I'm sorry Lily won't grow up knowing her grandmother loved her from the moment she discovered who she was. But most of all, I'm sorry I was too much of a coward to tell you the truth while I was still alive to face the consequences. Take care of our girl, Daniel. Give her everything I couldn't give Emily. Let her grow up knowing she's loved, valued, seen for who she is. And someday when she's old enough, tell her about me. Tell her I wasn't perfect, but I tried. Tell her that her mother, Emily, was loved even when she didn't know it. Tell her that family isn't always simple, but it's always worth fighting for. Evelyn leaned closer to the camera, her eyes red, but her voice steady. And Daniel, thank you. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for making my last year less lonely. Thank you for being exactly who Lily needed you to be. I wish we'd had more time. I wish I'd been braver. I wish a lot of things that will never happen now. But I don't wish I'd never met you. That, at least, was worth everything. The video ended with Evelyn reaching forward to turn off the camera, and the screen went black. Daniel sat in the darkness, tears streaming down his face, and let himself feel the full weight of what they'd lost. Not just what might have been between him and Evelyn, but what Lily had lost. A grandmother who would have adored her, who understood what it meant to be lost and found, who'd spent her life searching for exactly the kind of connection Lily represented. His phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Chen. Lily's asking when you're coming home. She made you a picture at school today. Daniel wiped his eyes and texted back, on my way now. But before he left, he opened Evelyn's bottom desk drawer, the one that had been locked when he first took over the office. Inside were more photos of Lily, school pictures, snapshots that must have come from social media or school newsletters, images captured from a distance at school events. Evelyn had been watching, documenting, loving from the shadows. She'd also left a small journal, separate from the others. The first page simply read, "For Lily, memories I'll never get to make." The pages that followed were filled with observations, hopes, dreams, things Evelyn had noticed about Lily during their brief encounters, thoughts about what she might say to her granddaughter if she ever got the chance, wishes for Lily's future, for the woman she might become. She has Emily's laugh, one entry read, bright and unguarded, like sunlight breaking through clouds. I heard her giggling with another child in the Harper Industries lobby last month when Daniel brought her to pick up paperwork. She didn't know I was watching from the elevator. She didn't know her grandmother's heart was breaking with joy at the sound. Another entry. I want to tell her about Emily, about how her mother loved flowers, especially lilies, about how Emily was kind even when the world wasn't kind to her, about how she died doing something ordinary, driving to the grocery store, and how that ordinariness is somehow the most tragic part. Lily should know her mother was loved, was wanted, was mourned. And near the end, if I could give Lily one gift, it would be this: the certainty that she belongs, that she's not defined by the losses she's experienced or the complications of her family tree. She's Lily, bright, curious, full of possibility. She's Daniel's daughter because he chose her. She's Emily's daughter because Emily wanted her. And she's mine because love doesn't require proximity. Sometimes it's enough just to witness someone's existence and know you're connected to something beautiful. Daniel closed the journal carefully, reverently. This would go with the letter Catherine had given him, kept safe until Lily was old enough to understand the depth of what her grandmother had felt for her. At home, Lily was waiting with a drawing of the Christmas tree they'd bought together. She'd added figures around it, her, Daniel, and a third figure with long dark hair and gray eyes. "Who's that?" Daniel asked, though his heart already knew. "Miss Evelyn," Lily said matter-of-factly. "She helped us get the tree, remember? She said she liked Christmas." "I remember, Lily Bear. Is she happy in heaven?" Daniel pulled his daughter onto his lap, holding her close. "I think she's at peace now. She spent a long time looking for something, and right before she died, she found it." What was she looking for? How could he explain this to a 7-year-old? How could he make her understand that Evelyn had been searching for her, for Emily, for the family she'd lost and the love she'd been denied? "She was looking for someone to love," Daniel said finally, "and she found them. She just didn't get enough time to tell them." Lily considered this solemnly. "That's sad." "It is sad. But you know what? The person she was looking for knew they were loved anyway, even without the words." "How?" "Because love isn't just words, Lily Bear. Sometimes it's the things people do for you, the way they take care of you, the way they make sure you're safe and happy even if they can't be there with you." Lily nodded slowly, processing this 7-year-old wisdom. Then she said, "Daddy, when I grow up, can I help people find their families, like Miss Evelyn wanted to find hers?" The question hit Daniel like a thunderbolt, out of the mouths of babes, carrying forward a legacy she didn't even know was hers. "I think that would be a beautiful thing to do," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I think Miss Evelyn would love that idea." That night, after Lily was asleep, Daniel made a decision. He pulled out his laptop and started drafting a proposal for the Harper Industries board, a new corporate initiative, a foundation dedicated to helping adoptees and birth parents navigate reunion and connection. They'd provide resources, counseling, investigative services for those who couldn't afford private detectives. They'd fund DNA databases and legal assistance. They'd do what Evelyn had spent 25 years and a fortune trying to do: reconnect families torn apart by circumstances. They'd call it the Emily Harper Reed Foundation, named after the daughter Evelyn never got to know. It took him 3 weeks to polish the proposal, running numbers and projecting impact, building the case for why a business should invest in this kind of social initiative. When he presented it to the board, Marcus Webb was the first to object. "This is a waste of corporate resources. We're not a charity, right? We're a business. Our shareholders expect returns, not feel-good projects." "Our shareholders expect responsible corporate citizenship," Daniel countered. "And there's a business case here, too. Employee satisfaction increases when companies demonstrate social responsibility. We differentiate ourselves in the market. We attract talent that wants to work for organizations with values beyond profit margins." "This is about Evelyn, isn't it?" Patricia Chen's voice was sharp. "You're trying to memorialize her with some grand gesture instead of focusing on what she actually built. This company." Daniel met her eyes steadily. "Evelyn built this company to mean something. She could have maximized short-term profits. She could have cut benefits and outsourced labor and done all the things that look good on quarterly reports. But she didn't.
She built a company that employed people with dignity, that invested in communities, that believed business could be a force for good. This foundation isn't a departure from her vision, it's the fulfillment of it. And it has nothing to do with the fact that Evelyn was adopted. Marcus's tone was mocking. That she spent years searching for her birth family. This isn't about honoring her legacy. It's about you projecting your own issues onto company policy. Daniel felt his temper flare. My issues? You mean like being a single father who adopted a daughter and understands firsthand the complexity of adoptive families? Yes, Marcus, I have personal experience with this. That's not a weakness, it's expertise. I know what these families need because I've lived it. Richard Castelaine held up a hand. Enough, both of you. He turned to Daniel. What's the proposed budget? 10 million initially, with plans to scale based on impact metrics. We'd partner with existing adoption registries and advocacy groups to maximize reach. Within 5 years, we project helping reunite over 1,000 families, with indirect impact touching tens of thousands more. And you truly believe this honors Evelyn's memory? Daniel thought about the journals, the video, the small notebook of wishes for Lily. I know it does, because I know things about Evelyn that the rest of you didn't. I know what she cared about beyond profit margins, and I know she'd want this company to stand for something more than quarterly earnings. The room was silent. Then Richard said, I vote yes. 10 million for a pilot program, reviewed in 2 years for continuation or expansion. One by one, the other board members voted. Patricia abstained. Marcus voted no, loudly and with prejudice. But in the end, the foundation was approved by a slim majority. After the meeting, Richard pulled Daniel aside. That was risky. You burned political capital on this. I know, but it matters. To Evelyn or to you? Both, Daniel admitted. Lily asked me last month if she could help people find their families when she grows up. She doesn't even know her own story yet, and she's already carrying forward Evelyn's mission. How could I not support that? Richard studied him for a long moment. Catherine showed you everything, didn't she? The journals, the video, all of it. Yes. And you're still here, still fighting for Evelyn's vision, even though she kept massive secrets from you. She kept those secrets because she was scared of losing what little connection she had. I understand that kind of fear. Daniel's voice was quiet. And maybe I'm fighting for her vision because it's the only way I can tell her I understand. That I forgive her. That I would have loved her if we'd had time. Would have? Richard's eyebrow rose. Or do? Daniel didn't answer. They both knew the truth. The Emily Harper Reed Foundation launched 6 months after Evelyn's death, timed to coincide with what would have been her 43rd birthday. Daniel stood at the podium during the launch event, Lily beside him in a navy blue dress that Evelyn would have loved, and told a carefully edited version of the truth. Evelyn Harper was a private person, he began. She didn't share her personal struggles publicly, but those close to her knew that she carried a profound loss, a separation from family that shaped her entire life. She spent years searching for what she'd lost, and in her final months she found it. But by then, time had run out. This foundation exists because Evelyn believed that no one should have to search alone, that every person deserves the chance to know where they come from, who they're connected to, what their story is. We won't succeed every time. Some families can't or shouldn't be reunited. Some stories end in grief instead of joy. But we'll provide resources, support, and hope to those searching for answers about their own origins, because that's what Evelyn would have wanted. And because somewhere out there, someone is searching for the family they lost, let's help them find their way home. The applause was thunderous. After the speech, dozens of people approached Daniel with their own stories. Adoptees searching for birth parents, birth mothers hoping to reconnect with children they'd placed, siblings separated by foster care, families torn apart by circumstances and desperate to rebuild connection. One woman, probably in her 60s, gripped Daniel's hand with tears streaming down her face. I gave up my son 40 years ago. I was 16, scared, and I had no choice. I've been looking for him ever since. This foundation, what you're doing, it's everything I needed and never had. Thank you. Thank you for understanding what it's like to live with that hole in your heart. Daniel thought about Evelyn, about Emily, about the chain of loss that had somehow led to Lily.
I hope we can help you find him, he said sincerely. That's what we're here for. As the event wound down, Lily tugged at his sleeve. Daddy, that was good. You sounded like you really meant it. I did mean it, Lily Bear. Would Miss Evelyn have liked it? Daniel looked down at his daughter, at Evelyn's granddaughter, at the child who represented 3 generations of women and the man who loved them all. I think she would have loved it. I think this is exactly what she would have wanted her legacy to be. Lily considered this, then said with the uncomplicated wisdom of 7-year-olds, then we should do it for her. We should help lots of people find their families. We will, sweetheart. I promise. It was a promise he intended to keep. For Evelyn, for Emily, for Lily, for all the lost and searching people who deserved to know they belonged somewhere. That night, Daniel sat in Evelyn's old office, his office now, finally starting to feel like it actually belonged to him, and opened her journals one more time. He'd read them so many times he practically had them memorized, but he kept coming back to one particular entry from 6 months before her death. I wonder what Daniel would do if he knew the truth. Would he see me as manipulative? Would he think I only cared about him because of Lily? Or would he understand that yes, I hired him because of his daughter, but I promoted him because of who he is? That I watched him because Lily connected us, but I fell for him because he reminded me what it meant to be human? I'll never tell him. I'm too scared. But sometimes, late at night when I'm alone in this office, I imagine a different version of events. One where I had the courage to be honest, where I told Daniel about Emily and Lily, and instead of running, he stayed. Where we built something real together, a family not defined by blood or law, but by choice and love. Where Lily grew up knowing all her grandparents, including the one who searched for her before she even knew to search back. It's a beautiful fantasy, but that's all it is. In reality, I'll die with these secrets locked inside, and Daniel will read my letters and either hate me or pity me. Either way, I'll be gone, unable to explain or defend or make him understand that every choice I made because I loved them both too much to risk destroying what little I had. Daniel closed the journal and whispered to the empty room, to Evelyn's ghost, to the version of her that lived on in his memory. I don't hate you. I don't pity you. I understand. And if circumstances had been different, if you'd told me the truth while you were alive, I would have stayed. I would have built that family with you. I would have loved you, not despite your secrets, but because you trusted me with them. You were never invisible, Evelyn. Not to me. The words hung in the air, a confession to someone who would never hear it, but saying them felt important, necessary. Daniel needed to acknowledge the truth that Evelyn had died without knowing. He would have chosen her. Complications and all, secrets and fears, he would have taken the risk. They just never got the chance. His computer dinged with an email notification. The Foundation's first success story. A mother and daughter reunited after 30 years, both of them sobbing with joy as they met for the first time since the adoption. The caseworker had attached photos, and Daniel studied them carefully. 2 women with the same eyes, the same smile, holding each other like they might disappear if they let go. This was what Evelyn had wanted, this moment, multiplied across hundreds or thousands of families. The Foundation wouldn't bring Emily back. It wouldn't give Evelyn the years she should have had with her daughter and granddaughter. But it would ensure that other families didn't live with that same regret, that same loss. It was an imperfect memorial to an imperfect woman who'd tried her best in impossible circumstances. And somehow, that felt exactly right. Daniel forwarded the photo to Richard with a single line. She'd be proud of this. Richard's response came within minutes. She'd be proud of you. Keep going. So he would. He'd run Evelyn's company with integrity and humanity. He'd raise her granddaughter with the fierce love she'd witnessed and admired. He'd build the foundation that bore Emily's name and helped families find their way home. He'd honor every part of Evelyn's legacy, the business genius, yes, but also the scared 17-year-old who'd given up her baby, the lonely woman who'd built walls to protect herself, the secret grandmother who'd loved from a distance because she didn't know how to love up close. And maybe, just maybe, he'd prove that some love stories didn't need perfect endings to matter, that some connections transcended life and death, presence and absence, words said and words left unspoken. Evelyn had asked if he'd want to know her if circumstances were different. The answer was yes. But the real truth, the one he was only now beginning to understand, was that he'd known her anyway. Through her journals, her decisions, her legacy, her love for Lily, he'd known the real Evelyn Harper more deeply than most people ever got to know anyone. And he'd loved her. Not perfectly, not simply, but truly. Even though she'd never know. Even though it was too late. Even though the only family they'd ever have existed in might have been and the daughter who connected them without knowing it. Love was enough. It had to be. Because it was all they had left. 3 years passed with the steady rhythm of seasons changing and a child growing taller. Lily turned 10, her wild curls still untamed, her questions about the world becoming more complex and harder to answer with simple reassurances. The Emily Harper Reed Foundation had reunited over 800 families, its success exceeding even Daniel's most optimistic projections. And Harper Industries thrived under his permanent leadership, the board having voted unanimously to remove the interim from his title 18 months earlier. But success came with scrutiny, and lately that scrutiny had turned dangerous. Daniel first noticed the hostile takeover attempt buried in a routine financial report. A shell corporation had been quietly acquiring Harper Industries stock for months, accumulating enough shares to force a board vote on company direction. The corporation's backers remained anonymous, hidden behind layers of legal entities and offshore accounts. But their intentions were clear: strip the company for parts, maximize short-term shareholder value, and eliminate the wasteful social programs that made Harper Industries unique. Programs like the Emily Harper Reed Foundation. They're going after everything Evelyn built, Richard said during an emergency board meeting. He'd aged in the 3 years since Evelyn's death, his hair fully silver now, new lines carved deep around his eyes. Not just the foundation, the employee profit-sharing program, the community investment initiatives, the scholarship fund. They see all of it as fat to be trimmed. Marcus Webb, surprisingly, had become one of Daniel's allies after the foundation's success proved its value. We need to know who's behind this. No one accumulates this much stock without leaving fingerprints. I've got investigators on it, Daniel said, though his stomach churned with anxiety. But we need to assume the worst-case scenario. If they force a vote and win, they can restructure the entire company, fire leadership, gut programs, redirect everything toward pure profit maximization. So we fight. Patricia Chen's voice was firm. She'd softened toward Daniel over the years, particularly after he'd navigated a difficult merger that had saved 300 jobs she'd thought were doomed. We rally shareholders who believe in Evelyn's vision. We make the case that Harper Industries' success comes from its values, not despite them. That's a long play, Marcus warned, and we don't know how much time we have. Daniel looked around the table at faces that had become familiar, even friendly. 3 years ago, most of these people had seen him as an interloper, a charity case who'd somehow conned his way into power. Now they were fighting beside him to preserve what Evelyn had built. Then we better move fast, Daniel said. That evening, he came home to find Lily at the kitchen table, surrounded by books and papers. She was working on a school project about family trees, and her small face was scrunched in concentration. How's it going, Lily Bear? Confusing. She pushed a strand of hair behind her ear, an unconscious gesture that was pure Evelyn, though she didn't know it. I'm supposed to go back 4 generations, but I don't know anything past you. Mrs. Patterson said I could just do your family tree instead, but that feels like cheating. Daniel's heart clenched. This moment had been coming for years. Lily was getting old enough to ask hard questions, to wonder about the gaps in her history. And Daniel had been preparing, had read and reread Evelyn's letters and journals, trying to figure out the right words. But he hadn't expected it to happen tonight, not with the company under siege and his mind scattered in 1,000 directions. Come here, Lily Bear. He sat down beside her and pulled her close. I think it's time we talked about your family tree. The whole story, not just the easy parts. Lily looked up at him with eyes that were becoming more perceptive every day. Is this about my real mom? She was your real mom. Biology doesn't make someone more or less real. Daniel kept his voice gentle. But yes, this is about Emily, your birth mother. Did you know her? No, sweetie. She died when you were just a baby before you came to live with me. But I know things about her, important things that I've been waiting to tell you until you were old enough to understand. Lily's expression turned serious, older than her 10 years. Tell me. So Daniel did. He told her about Emily Harper Reed, the elementary school teacher who'd loved flowers and children and had named her daughter after her favorite bloom. He told her about the car accident, the drunk driver, the randomness of tragedy. He told her about adoption and foster care and how she'd eventually come to live with him, how he'd chosen to be her father even though he hadn't been there when she was born. And then, carefully, he told her about Evelyn. "Do you remember Miss Evelyn?" "From my work?" Lily nodded slowly. "The lady who died. The one who was nice to me." "She was more than nice, Lily. She was your grandmother." The words hung in the air between them. Lily blinked, processing, her young mind working through the implications. "But you said my mom was adopted. How could Miss Evelyn be my grandma?" "Miss Evelyn gave your mom up for adoption when she was very young. She spent most of her life looking for her, trying to find out if she was okay. And when she finally found the records, she learned that Emily had died. But Emily had a daughter, you, and somehow you ended up in my life, which meant you ended up in Evelyn's life too." "Did she know that I was her granddaughter?" This was the hard part, the truth that still made Daniel's chest ache with complicated grief. "Yes, sweetheart. She figured it out about a year before she died. But she was scared to tell us. She was afraid I'd think she'd only hired me because of you, or that telling you would confuse you, or that reaching out would somehow hurt you more than help you." Lily was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing the edges of her family tree assignment. "So she watched me, like from far away?" "She did. She came to some of your school events, always sitting in the back where you wouldn't notice. She kept photos of you. She wrote about you in her journals." Daniel pulled out the small notebook Evelyn had left, the one marked, "For Lily, Memories I'll Never Get to Make." "She left this for you. Thoughts about who you were, who she hoped you'd become. She loved you, Lily. She just didn't know how to show you." Lily took the notebook with careful hands, opening it to a random page. Her eyes moved over Evelyn's precise handwriting, and Daniel watched emotions flicker across her face. Confusion, sadness, something that might have been anger. "She should have told me," Lily said quietly. "I would have wanted to know her." "I know. And she knew that too. That's what made it so hard for her. She knew she should tell us, but she was scared. Sometimes adults make bad choices because they're afraid, even when they know better." "Are you mad at her?" Daniel considered the question carefully. Was he mad at Evelyn? He'd been at first, furious that she'd kept such massive secrets, that she'd watched them for months without revealing the truth. But anger had faded into understanding, grief, and something more complicated. "No," he said finally. "I'm sad that she didn't trust us enough to be honest. I'm sad that she died before we could be a family the way we should have been. But I'm not mad. She did the best she could with what she knew, and she loved us the only way she felt safe doing." "Did you love her?" The question caught him off guard, even though he should have expected it. Lily was 10 now, old enough to pick up on subtext and unspoken emotions. "I could have," Daniel admitted. "If we'd had more time. If she'd been brave enough to tell me the truth. Yeah, I could have loved her. Maybe I did, in a way. But it's complicated, Lily Bear. Adult feelings usually are." Lily nodded like this made sense. Then she said, "Can I read her letter now? The one she left for when I'm older?" Daniel had been holding on to that letter for 3 years, waiting for the right moment. Was 10 old enough? Was there ever a right age to read the final words of a grandmother you'd never known? "Let's read it together," he said. He retrieved the sealed envelope from his desk drawer, the one Catherine Mills had given him at that first meeting. Lily's name was written across the front in Evelyn's elegant script. Together, they carefully opened it. The letter was several pages long, dated 2 weeks before Evelyn's death. "Dear Lily," it began, "I don't know how old you'll be when you read this. I hope you're old enough to understand complicated things, because I have complicated things to tell you. My name is Evelyn Harper, and I'm your grandmother. Not the kind of grandmother who bakes cookies or remembers your birthday. I'm sorry I never got to be that for you. But the biological kind, the one who shares your DNA and your gray-green eyes and probably your stubborn streak, though I can't take credit for that since I never got to influence you growing up. I gave your mother, Emily, up for adoption when I was 17 years old. It was the worst decision and the best decision I ever made. Worse because I spent 25 years wondering about her, loving her from a distance, carrying the weight of that loss like a stone in my chest. Best because she got to grow up with parents who were ready for her, who loved her completely, who gave her the stability I couldn't provide. When I finally found records of Emily, I learned she'd died. I can't describe that pain, Lily. Imagine searching for someone your entire adult life, finally discovering where they are, only to learn you're 3 years too late, that you'll never get to say the words you've been practicing for decades, that you'll never know the sound of her voice or the way she laughed or whether she ever thought about the mother who gave her away. But then I found you. And somehow, impossibly, you were already part of my world. Your father worked for my company. I got to watch you grow from a distance, got to see pieces of Emily in your smile and your curiosity and your kindness. I should have told you who I was. I should have walked up to you and said, "I'm your grandmother, and I've been looking for you my whole life." But I was scared, Lily. Scared you wouldn't want me. Scared I'd disrupt the life your father had built for you. Scared that if I reached for you, you'd disappear like everything else I'd ever loved. So I watched from the shadows. I made sure you had opportunities and security. I loved you the only way I knew how, from a safe distance where I couldn't get hurt and couldn't hurt you. I know that wasn't fair. I know you deserved a grandmother who was brave enough to show up, who put your needs ahead of her fears. I'm sorry I couldn't be that person, but I want you to know that every decision I made because I loved you, even when those decisions were wrong. Here's what I hope for you, Lily. I hope you grow up brave in ways I never was. I hope you reach for the people you love instead of watching them from a distance. I hope you don't let fear keep you from connection, from vulnerability, from all the messy, beautiful things that make life worth living. I hope you know your mother, Emily, was loved, that even though I gave her up, I thought about her every single day, that she mattered to me more than anything else in my life, even though we never met. And I hope you know that you matter too, that you're not defined by the complicated circumstances of your birth or the losses you've experienced. You're Lily, bright and curious and full of possibility. You're loved by your father, who chose you. You're loved by me, even if I never got to show you properly. You're loved, Lily. Never doubt that. Take care of your father. He's a good man, better than he gives himself credit for. He loved you when you needed it most, and that kind of love is worth everything. And take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. Know that you come from a long line of imperfect women who did their best in impossible circumstances. We made mistakes, carried losses, loved people we never got to keep, but we survived. We endured, and we passed on to you the strength to do the same. I'm sorry I can't be there to watch you grow up. I'm sorry I won't get to see the woman you'll become. But I'm grateful I got to witness even a small part of your childhood. Those glimpses of you, Lily. They were the best moments of my final year. Be happy, sweetheart. Be brave. Be yourself, fully and unapologetically, and know that somewhere, a grandmother you never knew is proud of you. All my love, Evelyn. Lily was crying by the time Daniel finished reading, tears streaming down her face. He pulled her close and let her sob against his chest. This child who'd lost so much, and was only now beginning to understand the full scope of those losses. "It's not fair," she said between sobs. "She was right there. She could have told me. We could have known each other." "I know, Lily Bear, I know. I would have loved her. I would have wanted her as my grandma." She knew that too. That's what made it so hard for her. They sat like that for a long time, holding each other in the kitchen, while Lily's family tree assignment lay forgotten on the table. Finally, Lily pulled back and wiped her eyes. "Can I add her to my family tree, even though I never really knew her?" "Of course you can. She's your grandmother. She belongs on your tree." Lily picked up her pencil and carefully wrote Evelyn Harper on a branch, connecting it to Emily's name, connecting Emily to Lily. 3 generations of women, linked by blood and loss and love that came too late or not at all. "Dad?" Lily's voice was small. "Do you think she's with my mom now, in heaven or wherever people go?" Daniel thought about Evelyn and Emily, 2 women who'd never met in life but were forever connected through the daughter one bore and the other raised. "I like to think so. I like to think they finally got to know each other,
that Emily understands why Evelyn made the choices she did, that they're both watching over you together. That's a nice thought. Yeah, Lily Bear, it is. The next morning brought new complications. Daniel's investigators had finally traced the shell corporation behind the hostile takeover attempt to its source. Gerald Klein, a corporate raider known for buying struggling companies, stripping their assets, and selling off the pieces for maximum profit. But Harper Industries wasn't struggling. It was thriving, which meant Klein's interest wasn't about saving a failing business.
It was about destroying what Evelyn had built specifically because it challenged his worldview. He's given interviews about this, Richard said, sliding a tablet across Daniel's desk. Says companies like ours are social justice experiments masquerading as businesses, that shareholders deserve maximum returns, not feel-good programs that subsidize other people's poor decisions. Daniel scanned the interview, his anger rising with every paragraph. Klein ranted about the foundation being a waste of resources, about employee profit sharing reducing shareholder value, about how emotional decision-making had no place in serious business. He's not wrong about one thing, Daniel said quietly. Evelyn did make emotional decisions. She built this company to mean something, not just to maximize profit. She created the foundation because she'd lived through the pain it addresses. She established profit sharing because she believed employees deserved to share in success. Every irrational program he's complaining about comes from Evelyn's humanity. So how do we fight someone who sees humanity as a weakness? We prove him wrong. Daniel stood and moved to the window, looking out at the city below. We show shareholders that our values aren't just morally right, they're good business. Employee retention at Harper Industries is 15% higher than industry average. Productivity is up across all divisions. Our brand loyalty is off the charts because customers know we stand for something. And the foundation generates positive press worth millions in marketing value. That's the rational argument, Richard said. But Klein's not operating on rationality. He's operating on ideology. He wants to destroy what Evelyn built as an example, to prove that companies can't afford to have hearts. Then we make this personal. Daniel turned back to Richard. We tell Evelyn's story. We tell the world why she built what she built, why it matters, why destroying it would be destroying something irreplaceable. You'd expose her secrets, the adoption, the search, all of it? With Lily's permission, yes, because the truth is more powerful than Klein's ideology. The truth is that Evelyn Harper wasn't some bleeding heart liberal trying to social engineer the world. She was a woman who experienced profound loss and decided to build something that would prevent others from experiencing the same pain. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing a human being can do. Richard considered this. It's risky. You'd be making yourself vulnerable too. People will ask why you care so much, why you're so invested in Evelyn's legacy. Let them ask. I'll tell them the truth, that Evelyn gave me and my daughter a chance when no one else would, that she saw us, really saw us, and decided we were worth investing in. That's what her company does, and that's why it's worth fighting for. And if you lose, if Klein wins and guts everything? Daniel thought about Lily reading Evelyn's letter, about the 800 families reunited through the foundation, about 3,000 employees who worked with dignity and pride because their company valued them as human beings. Then we go down fighting, but we don't go down quiet. The press conference was scheduled for 3 days later. Daniel spent those days preparing, rehearsing, and having long conversations with Lily about what he was planning to reveal. She surprised him with her maturity, her understanding that her grandmother's story could help others. Tell them everything, Lily said. Tell them about Miss Evelyn and my mom and why the foundation matters. Tell them that families like ours need companies like ours, that people who've been lost need to be found. Tell them it's not just about money, it's about people. You're pretty wise for a 10-year-old. I get it from my grandma, Lily said with a small smile. Both of them, I guess. The one in Florida and the one I never met. On the morning of the press conference, Daniel stood behind a podium bearing the Harper Industries logo with Lily beside him and Richard standing to his right. The room was packed with journalists, shareholders, employees, and curious onlookers. Daniel had prepared remarks, but as he looked out at all those faces, he set his notes aside and spoke from the heart. 3.5 years ago, I was a struggling single father, working as a financial analyst.
I was barely making rent, relying on neighbors' kindness to watch my daughter after school, wondering how I'd pay for her future. Then Evelyn Harper promoted me, not because of my MBA or my connections. I didn't have either, but because she saw something in me worth investing in. That promotion changed my life. It gave me stability, security, hope. But it wasn't until after Evelyn died that I understood why she'd done it. You see, Evelyn had a secret. When she was 17, she gave up a daughter for adoption. She spent the next 25 years searching for that daughter, wondering if she was okay, carrying the weight of that loss every single day. When she finally found records of her daughter, Emily, she learned she'd died in a car accident. But Emily had a child, my daughter, Lily. And somehow, through circumstances too complicated to fully explain here, Lily came to work for me before either Evelyn or I knew the connection. Daniel paused, letting this sink in. He could see people leaning forward, journalists scribbling notes, cameras flashing. Evelyn discovered the truth about a year before her death. She realized my daughter was her granddaughter, and she was faced with an impossible choice. Tell us the truth and risk disrupting our lives, or love us from a distance and carry that secret to her grave. She chose the distance. She chose to watch Lily from the shadows, to ensure we were both cared for through promotions and opportunities, but to never claim the relationship she'd searched for her entire adult life. Some of you might see that as cowardice. I see it as sacrifice. Evelyn put our stability ahead of her own happiness. She gave up the chance to be Lily's grandmother because she thought it was the right thing to do. And when she died, she left behind letters explaining everything. She left behind journals chronicling 25 years of searching and longing. She left behind instructions to create the Emily Harper Reed Foundation, named for the daughter she never got to know, designed to help other families avoid the same loss. Daniel looked down at Lily, who nodded encouragingly. He squeezed her hand and continued. Now, there's a man named Gerald Klein who's trying to take over this company. He thinks the foundation is wasteful. He thinks employee profit sharing is foolish. He thinks every decision Evelyn made out of humanity and compassion is a business mistake that needs to be corrected. But here's what Mr. Klein doesn't understand. Evelyn didn't build Harper Industries to be just another soulless corporation chasing quarterly earnings. She built it to mean something. She built it to prove that business could be a force for good, that success and values weren't mutually exclusive, that companies could profit while also caring about people. The Emily Harper Reed Foundation has reunited over 800 families. 800 mothers and daughters, fathers and sons, siblings and cousins who'd been separated by adoption or foster care and never stopped looking for each other. 800 stories of loss transformed into stories of reunion. That's what Evelyn's wasteful program has accomplished in just 3 years, and that's just one initiative. Our employee profit sharing means 3,000 people share in this company's success. Our community investment programs have created jobs in neighborhoods others ignored. Our scholarship fund has sent dozens of kids to college who couldn't have afforded it otherwise. These aren't business mistakes. These are business choices. They're the reason Harper Industries has industry-leading employee retention, customer loyalty, and brand value. They're the reason people want to work here, shop here, invest here. Because we stand for something more than profit. So yes, Mr. Klein is right about one thing. Evelyn Harper made emotional decisions. She built this company from her humanity, her pain, her desperate hope that she could transform loss into meaning. And I'm here to tell you that her approach works, not just morally, but practically. We're more profitable now than we've ever been, precisely because we refuse to treat people as expendable resources. Daniel paused, his voice thickening with emotion. Evelyn never got to be Lily's grandmother in life. She never got to read her bedtime stories or braid her hair or watch her open presents on Christmas morning. She gave up that chance because she thought it was what we needed. But she left us something just as valuable, a company and a foundation built on the belief that every person matters, that every family deserves a chance to be whole, that business success and human dignity can coexist. I'm fighting to preserve that legacy, not because I was in love with Evelyn Harper, though I'll admit I might have been given time. I'm fighting because what she built is worth saving, because 800 families are worth it, because 3,000 employees are worth it, because my daughter deserves to grow up in a world where companies like Harper Industries can exist and thrive. So to our shareholders, I say this: vote your conscience. If you believe profit is the only metric that matters, if you think humanity is a liability rather than an asset,
then side with Mr. Klein. Gut our programs, fire our leadership, maximize short-term returns, and damn the consequences. But if you believe businesses should stand for something beyond their bottom line, if you think Evelyn Harper's vision was worth preserving, if you want to be part of something that proves compassion and success can coexist, then stand with us. Stand with the 3,000 employees who depend on this company. Stand with the families waiting for the foundation to help them reunite. Stand with Evelyn's legacy. Because some things are worth more than money. Some stories matter more than quarterly reports. And some losses, like the one Evelyn carried for 25 years, can be transformed into something beautiful if we're brave enough to try. Thank you. The room erupted. Questions flew from every direction, cameras flashing, voices shouting to be heard. But Daniel only saw Lily, looking up at him with pride shining in her eyes, Evelyn's eyes, and knew he'd said exactly what needed to be said. Whatever happened next, they'd face it together. The way Evelyn would have wanted, the way families should. The press conference went viral within hours. By evening, Daniel's face was on every major news network, and the story of Evelyn Harper's secret granddaughter had captured the nation's attention in a way no corporate takeover battle ever had. Social media exploded with hashtags, hashtag Save Harper, Industries, hashtag Evelyn's Legacy, hash Families Matter, and suddenly the hostile takeover wasn't just a business story anymore. It was a human story, and people cared. Gerald Klein responded with a statement calling Daniel's speech emotional manipulation and a desperate attempt to distract from poor financial stewardship. He doubled down on his position that Harper Industries was mismanaged and that shareholders deserved better returns than warm, fuzzy feelings about reunited families. But the tide had already turned. Shareholders who'd been on the fence started reaching out to Richard, expressing support for maintaining Evelyn's vision. Employees organized rallies outside Harper Industries headquarters, holding signs that read "People over Profits" and "Evelyn's Dream Lives On." The foundation received an influx of donations from strangers who'd been moved by the story, enough to fund operations for the next 5 years. And Lily, his remarkable 10-year-old daughter, became the unexpected face of what they were fighting for. A week after the press conference, a major morning show reached out, requesting an interview with Daniel and Lily together. He was hesitant. She was still a child, and he didn't want to exploit her or put pressure on her that she wasn't ready to handle. But when he asked Lily what she thought, she surprised him again. "I want to do it," she said firmly. "I want people to know about Grandma Evelyn, and I want other kids who don't know where they come from to know that it's okay, that you can have a weird family and still be happy." So they sat on a bright studio couch across from a sympathetic interviewer named Sarah Chen, no relation to Emily's late husband, though the coincidence made Daniel's chest ache, and told their story to millions of viewers. "Lily, you found out about your grandmother just recently," Sarah said gently. "How did that make you feel?" Lily thought about this carefully, her small face serious. "Sad, mostly, because I wish I could have known her when she was alive, but also happy, because now I know where I come from. I know my mom's name was Emily, and she liked flowers, and she was a teacher. I know my grandma was looking for her for a really long time. I know I come from people who loved each other even when they couldn't be together." "And you're not angry that Evelyn didn't tell you while she was alive?" "I was at first," Lily admitted. "But my dad explained that sometimes grown-ups make mistakes because they're scared. Grandma Evelyn was scared I wouldn't want her, or that telling me would mess up my life." "I get that. I've been scared before too." Sarah turned to Daniel. "You've been raising Lily as a single father while running a major corporation and fighting off a hostile takeover. That's a lot for one person to carry." "It is," Daniel agreed, "but it's what Evelyn did her whole life, carried impossible burdens and kept moving forward. She lost her daughter, built an empire, searched for Emily for 25 years, and never stopped hoping she'd find her way back to family. If she could do all that, I can handle a corporate raider and some late nights at the office. Do you think Evelyn would be proud of how you're fighting for her legacy?" Daniel's throat tightened. "I think she'd be surprised anyone was fighting for it at all. Evelyn spent most of her life believing she had to do everything alone, that depending on others was weakness. But she was wrong about that. She had people who cared about her, employees who respected her, friends who valued her, and even though she didn't know it, someone who could have loved her if she'd given him the chance. Sarah leaned forward. "You're talking about yourself." "Yes. I didn't get enough time with Evelyn to call it love, but I could have. The connection was there. The possibility was real. And I think she knew that, which made her death even more tragic. She died knowing we might have had something beautiful if she'd been brave enough to reach for it. So this fight, preserving Harper Industries and the foundation, it's personal for you." "Everything about this is personal," Daniel said. "Evelyn gave me a chance when I desperately needed one. She watched over Lily with a grandmother's love, even though she couldn't claim the title. She built something that matters, that helps people, that proves business doesn't have to be heartless. Letting Gerald Klein destroy that would be betraying everything she stood for." Lily reached over and squeezed Daniel's hand. "We're not going to let that happen. Right, Dad?" "Right, Lily Bear?" The interview aired the next morning and had 10 million views by noon. The public response was overwhelming. Support for Harper Industries, donations to the foundation, and a groundswell of shareholders publicly announcing they'd vote against Klein's takeover attempt. The story had transcended corporate politics and become something larger, a referendum on what kind of economy people wanted to live in, what kind of companies they wanted to support. But Klein wasn't finished. 2 days after the interview, his lawyers filed a lawsuit claiming Daniel had breached fiduciary duty by prioritizing social programs over shareholder returns. It was a nuisance suit designed to create legal chaos and drain Harper Industries' resources. Richard called it the last desperate move of someone who knows he's losing. Daniel spent long days with lawyers, preparing depositions and gathering evidence to prove that Harper Industries' approach was not only ethical, but profitable. The numbers were on his side. Revenue was up, employee productivity exceeded industry standards, and customer loyalty translated to sustainable growth. But legal battles were expensive and exhausting, taking time away from both Lily and the actual work of running the company. It was during one of these late nights, poring over financial statements in Evelyn's old office, that Daniel found something he'd missed before. Tucked into the back of one of her journals was a sealed envelope marked, "In case they come for what I built." Inside was a letter in Evelyn's handwriting, dated just weeks before her death. "Daniel, if you're reading this, someone is trying to destroy Harper Industries. I know how these people think. I fought them off for 20 years. They see companies like ours as threats because we prove their worldview wrong. They need to believe that maximizing profit is the only rational approach, that caring about people is naive and unsustainable. Our existence challenges that narrative, so they'll come with lawsuits and hostile takeovers and accusations of financial mismanagement. They'll try to paint me as a bleeding heart who let emotions cloud business judgment. They'll say you're in over your head, that you're not qualified to lead, that you're too personally invested to make rational decisions. Don't believe them. Don't let them make you doubt yourself or what we built together. The numbers prove we're right. Employee retention, customer loyalty, brand value, sustainable growth. But more importantly, the lives prove we're right. Every family reunited through the foundation, every employee who shares in our profits, every community we invest in. These aren't mistakes or weaknesses. They're features, not bugs. Stand firm, Daniel. Don't compromise on what matters. Don't let them strip away our humanity in exchange for a few points of additional margin. Fight for every person, every program, every value that makes Harper Industries different. And remember, you were chosen for this not despite your humanity, but because of it. I picked you to lead this company because you understand that numbers on spreadsheets represent real lives, because you see people, not just assets, because you'd fight for what's right even when it's hard. Trust yourself. Trust the vision, and know that I'm proud of you, wherever I am. With love and confidence, Evelyn. Daniel read the letter 3 times, feeling Evelyn's presence in every word. She'd known this was coming, she'd prepared for it, and she'd believed in him enough to leave the fight in his hands. He picked up his phone and called Richard. "I need to see every shareholder agreement, every corporate charter provision, every piece of legal documentation about how Harper Industries is structured. Evelyn left me something, and I think it might be the key to ending this." It took 2 weeks of intense legal research, but they found it. A provision in Harper Industries' corporate charter that Evelyn had quietly added 7 years earlier. It stated that any shareholder attempting a hostile takeover that would materially alter the company's mission, values, or social programs required not just a majority vote, but a supermajority of 75%. And the provision defined social programs to explicitly include the foundation, profit sharing, and community investment initiatives. She built in a poison pill, Richard said, almost laughing with relief. Evelyn saw this coming years ago and made it nearly impossible for raiders like Klein to succeed. Can he challenge this in court? He can try, but charter provisions are notoriously difficult to overturn. And with the public support you've generated, with shareholders actively opposing the takeover, Klein would need to convince 75% of investors that destroying Evelyn's legacy is worth it. That's not going to happen. Daniel felt something unknot in his chest. She protected it. Even from the grave, she protected what she built. She protected you too, Richard said quietly. This provision wasn't just about the company. It was about making sure whoever came after her could continue the mission without being forced to compromise. She knew you'd fight for this, and she made sure you'd have the tools to win. The shareholder vote was held 6 weeks after Daniel's press conference. Klein needed 75% to force restructuring. When the votes were tallied, he'd received 38%. Not even close to a simple majority, let alone the supermajority required. The hostile takeover had failed decisively. That evening, Daniel stood in the Harper Industries lobby with Lily, Richard, and dozens of employees who'd stayed late to hear the results. When he announced the vote count, the room erupted in cheers. People hugged, cried, celebrated. They'd won not just a corporate battle, but something more important, the right to continue being the kind of company Evelyn had envisioned. Marcus Webb approached Daniel with an outstretched hand. "You did it, boss. You saved her dream." "We all did it," Daniel corrected. This was never about one person. It was about everyone who believed Harper Industries should stand for something. Patricia Chen was next, her eyes suspiciously bright. "For what it's worth, Wright, I was wrong about you. You're exactly the kind of leader this company needs." "Thanks, Patricia. That means a lot." As employees gradually filtered out, heading home to celebrate with their families, Richard pulled Daniel aside. "There's one more thing. The board met before the vote, and we were unanimous. We want to make you permanent CEO, no more interim status. And we want to formally rename the company Harper Wright Industries, to honor both the woman who built it and the man who saved it." Daniel's eyes widened. "Richard, I can't. That's too much." "It's exactly right. Evelyn built the foundation, but you built on it in ways she never imagined. You took her vision and made it bigger, bolder, more resilient. You proved that her approach works, that it can survive attack, that it's worth fighting for. That deserves recognition." Daniel looked at Lily, who was examining a display about the foundation's recent successes. "What do you think, Lily Bear? Should we change the company name?" Lily considered this seriously. "I think Grandma Evelyn would like it. She wanted you to be her family, and families share names. This way, everyone will know you belong together." Something about that phrasing hit Daniel right in the heart. Belong together. That's what they'd been all along, even when Evelyn couldn't admit it. A family built on loss and longing and love that came too late but mattered anyway. "Okay," he said to Richard, "Harper Wright Industries. Let's make it official." 5 years later, Daniel stood in the same lobby for a very different ceremony. The Emily Harper Reed Foundation was celebrating its 1,000th successful family reunion, and they'd invited the families to gather for a group photograph and celebration. The lobby was packed with parents and children, siblings and cousins, people who'd been separated by adoption or foster care or simple bad luck and had found their way back to each other. Lily was 15 now, taller and more confident, but still with those untamed curls and gray-green eyes. She'd spent the past few years volunteering with the foundation, interviewing families and writing their stories for the website. She'd become the foundation's unofficial ambassador, the living proof that complicated family histories could have happy endings. "Dad, they're ready for your speech," she said, tugging his sleeve the way she had as a child. Daniel moved to the podium and looked out at the sea of reunited families. 1,000 stories of loss transformed into connection. 1,000 people who'd been searching and finally found what they were looking for. 8 years ago, he began, a woman named Evelyn Harper died without ever meeting the daughter she'd given up for adoption 25 years earlier. She spent most of her adult life searching, wondering, hoping she'd get a chance to explain, to apologize, to connect. She never got that chance. But before she died, Evelyn did something remarkable. She created this foundation named for the daughter she never knew, designed to help other families avoid the same loss. She couldn't reunite with Emily, but she could help 1,000 other families find their way back to each other. Today we're celebrating the 1,000th family reunited through the Emily Harper Reed Foundation. 1,000 mothers and daughters, fathers and sons, siblings and relatives who'd been separated and never stopped looking. 1,000 stories that could have ended in permanent loss but ended in reunion instead. That's Evelyn's legacy. Not just the company she built or the fortune she accumulated, but these 1,000 stories, these 1,000 families who got the chance she never had. Daniel paused, emotion thickening his voice. My daughter Lily is Evelyn's granddaughter. Evelyn found her a year before she died, but was too afraid to reveal the connection. She loved Lily from a distance, provided for her secretly, and died without ever getting to be her grandmother in the way she wanted. That loss is real and it's permanent. Lily will never have memories of baking cookies with Grandma Evelyn, or hearing her stories or feeling her arms around her. That's the tragedy we can't undo. But we can honor it. We can take that loss and transform it into something that prevents other families from experiencing the same pain. We can make Evelyn's search, her 25 years of longing and hoping and never giving up, mean something beyond her personal story. These 1,000 families are her memorial. These reunions are her legacy. And every person in this room who's found their way back to family is proof that Evelyn's life mattered, that her loss wasn't in vain, that love can transcend even death. The applause was thunderous. As Daniel stepped away from the podium, Lily wrapped her arms around him. That was perfect, Dad. Grandma would have loved it. You think so? I know so. Lily pulled back and smiled. Evelyn's smile, he realized. She'd grown into it over the years. I've been reading her journals again, the later ones where she writes about watching me. She talks about how she hoped I'd grow up to be brave and kind and willing to reach for people instead of watching from a distance. I think she'd be proud of what we've built. We couldn't have done it without her foundation. But she couldn't have imagined how far it would go. That's your contribution, Dad. You took her dream and made it bigger than she ever thought possible. Daniel looked around the lobby at Harper Wright Industries, at the banners celebrating the foundation's work, at the families embracing and laughing and crying happy tears. This was what Evelyn had wanted all along: connection, family, the kind of love that didn't let go even when circumstances made it impossible. Richard approached with a woman in her 60s, her face lined but kind. Daniel, Lily, I want you to meet someone. This is Margaret Reed, Emily's adoptive mother. Daniel's breath caught. Margaret Reed, the woman who'd raised Evelyn's daughter, who'd given Emily the life Evelyn couldn't provide. Mrs. Reed, he managed, it's an honor to meet you. Margaret's eyes were already wet with tears. She looked at Lily with an expression of wonder and grief. You look just like her, just like Emily at your age. The eyes especially. People say I look like my grandmother too, Lily said softly. Evelyn, even though we never met. I wish you could have known her, and I wish Emily could have known her birth mother. Margaret's voice cracked. For years I worried that if Emily ever found Evelyn, I'd lose my daughter's love. But after Emily died, I realized how foolish that was. Love doesn't divide, it multiplies. Emily could have loved me and loved Evelyn. Having a birth mother wouldn't have made her less my daughter. Evelyn worried about the same thing, Daniel said. She was afraid that reaching out to us would disrupt Lily's life, that claiming her relationship would hurt instead of help. Both of you were afraid of the same thing, that love was somehow limited, that connection would cause loss. But it doesn't, Margaret said. I've seen the families your foundation has reunited. Birth parents and adoptive parents meeting, building relationships, realizing they both love the same child, and that's beautiful, not threatening. If only Evelyn and I could have had that conversation while she was alive. If only we could have met and shared memories of Emily and grieved together. Lily stepped forward and took Margaret's hand. You're my great-grandmother, my mom's mother. Can I know you now? Can we share memories even though I never got to meet my mom or Grandma Evelyn? Margaret pulled Lily into a fierce hug, both of them crying now. Yes, sweetheart. Yes, absolutely yes. I'd be honored. Daniel watched them hold each other and felt something settle in his chest. This was what Evelyn had wanted all along, but had been too afraid to reach for. Not replacement or competition, but connection. The web of family expanding to include everyone who loved the people they'd lost. Over the next year, Margaret became a fixture in their lives. She shared photos of Emily growing up, told stories about her childhood and teenage years, painted a picture of the daughter Evelyn never got to know. Lily absorbed it all hungrily, piecing together her history from fragments and photographs and other people's memories. And slowly, carefully, Margaret helped Lily understand something crucial. Evelyn's choice to give Emily up hadn't been about not wanting her. It had been about wanting her to have what Evelyn couldn't provide. Margaret didn't resent Evelyn anymore. She understood, mother to mother, the impossible position Evelyn had been in at 17. She gave me the greatest gift of my life, Margaret told Lily one afternoon while looking through old photo albums. She gave me Emily. I got to raise her, love her, watch her become an amazing woman. And then Emily gave me the gift of you, even though I didn't know it for years. Evelyn's choice at 17 created a chain of love that led to you, Lily. That's not something to grieve, it's something to celebrate. By the time Lily turned 16, she'd become obsessed with genealogy and family connection. She'd traced her family tree back 6 generations on Daniel's side, filled in every gap she could find on Emily's adoptive family, and even tracked down distant cousins from Evelyn's line. Her bedroom wall was covered with a massive family tree that looked more like a forest, branches extending in every direction, connecting her to dozens of people she'd never met but was related to by blood or choice or love. Look at this, Dad, she said one evening, pointing to the tree. If you trace all the connections, there are over 200 people in my family. Most of them I'll never meet, but they're all part of my story. They all contributed something to who I am. Daniel studied the tree, seeing how she'd connected everyone. Emily in the center, with Evelyn above her and Lily below. Margaret and her late husband on one side, Daniel on the other, even though he had no biological connection. His parents, still alive in Ohio. Lily's maternal great-grandparents, second cousins and great-aunts and relatives Daniel had never even heard of. You did all this research yourself? The foundation taught me how. They have access to all these databases and records. I figured if I'm going to help other people find their families, I should understand my own first. She pointed to Evelyn's name. I wish I could have known her better. I wish she'd told us while she was alive. Me too, Lily Bear. But you know what? I think I do know her. Through her journals, her letters, the company she built, the foundation she created. I know she was scared and lonely, and she made mistakes. I know she loved my mom even though they never met. I know she loved me even though she couldn't tell me. That's enough. It has to be. Daniel pulled his daughter close, this remarkable young woman who'd somehow inherited Evelyn's strength and Emily's kindness and created something entirely her own. You're going to do great things, he said. Your grandmother would be so proud of you. I hope so, because I'm going to work for the foundation after college. I'm going to help families connect. I'm going to finish what Grandma Evelyn started, just like she hoped you would. 2 years later, on what would have been Evelyn's 50th birthday, Harper Wright Industries unveiled a statue in the headquarters lobby. It depicted a woman with one hand reaching forward, the other pressed to her heart, her expression both hopeful and sorrowful. The plaque read, Evelyn Harper, 1985 to 2027, founder, visionary, mother, grandmother. She searched for 25 years and found love in unexpected places. May we all be brave enough to reach for connection even when it terrifies us. Lily, now 18 and preparing for college, gave a speech at the unveiling. She was poised and articulate, every inch Evelyn's granddaughter. I never met my grandmother, she began, but she shaped my entire life. She gave my mother the chance to grow up loved and secure. She gave my father the opportunity to provide for me. She gave us both a company and a foundation that stand for something beyond profit. She gave me a legacy I'm proud to carry forward. Grandma Evelyn wasn't perfect. She made mistakes, kept secrets, let fear hold her back from connection. But she also never stopped hoping. She searched for her daughter for 25 years. She built something meaningful from her pain. And in her final years, she experienced love even though she couldn't quite reach for it. That's what I want people to remember about her. Not the CEO or the success story, but the human being who carried profound loss and transformed it into something that helps others. The woman who loved from a distance because she didn't know how to love up close. The grandmother who watched over me without ever claiming the title, who provided for me in secret, who died wishing she'd been braver. I forgive her for the secrets. I understand why she kept them, and I'm grateful for everything she gave me, even if it came wrapped in complexity and loss. Lily paused, looking at the statue. There's a letter she wrote to me to be opened on my 18th birthday. I read it last week, and there was one line that stayed with me. She wrote, "Be brave in ways I never was. Reach for people instead of watching from a distance. Don't let fear keep you from connection." So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to reach for connection even when it scares me. I'm going to work for the foundation and help families find each other. I'm going to honor Grandma Evelyn's legacy by being everything she wished she could have been. And maybe someday, when I have children of my own, I'll tell them about their great-grandmother who loved them before they were even born, who built something beautiful from her pain, who taught us all that family isn't just about biology or proximity. It's about love that endures even when circumstances make it impossible. Thank you, Grandma Evelyn, for everything. I hope wherever you are, you finally got to meet my mom. I hope you're both proud of what we've built in your names. And I hope you know that you were never invisible. You were seen, you were loved, and you mattered more than you ever understood. The crowd erupted in applause. Daniel watched his daughter with tears streaming down his face, overwhelmed by how much she'd grown, how deeply she understood what Evelyn had tried to build. After the ceremony, as people filtered out and maintenance workers covered the statue for the night, Daniel stood alone in the lobby. He looked up at Evelyn's bronze face, frozen in that expression of hope and sorrow, reaching forward while holding her heart. "We did it," he whispered. "We saved what you built. We made it bigger, stronger, more resilient. The company's thriving, the foundation's helped thousands of families, and Lily's going to carry it forward into the future. You'd be so proud of her, Evelyn. She's everything you hoped she'd be." The statue didn't answer, of course. But Daniel could almost feel Evelyn's presence, could almost hear her voice saying what she'd written in that final video. "Thank you for seeing me." "Thank you for seeing me too," Daniel said back. "Thank you for believing I could do this. Thank you for trusting me with Lily and the company and your legacy. Thank you for making my last conversation with you about hope instead of regret." He thought about that night in her office, less than 24 hours before she died. The question she'd asked about his bed being big enough for two. His answer that it was only big enough if she was beside him. The possibility that had hung between them, electric and fragile and full of promise. They'd never gotten their chance, never gotten to explore what they might have been. But in a way, they'd built something better than a conventional love story. They'd built a family, complicated and unconventional, and held together by choice rather than biology. They'd built a legacy that would outlive them both, helping families connect across generations. And they'd built love in the spaces between loss, proving that sometimes the most powerful connections are the ones that exist despite impossible circumstances, across insurmountable obstacles, even beyond death itself. Daniel pulled out his phone and opened the folder where he kept Evelyn's final video. He didn't need to watch it again. He'd memorized every word, every expression, every moment of vulnerability. But he liked knowing it was there, this record of her honesty, her hope, her willingness to be seen. He typed a message to no one, or maybe to everyone, or maybe just to the universe that had brought him and Evelyn together. Some love stories don't need perfect endings to matter. Some connections outlive time. Some families are built on loss and longing and love that came too late but counted anyway. This was ours, and it was enough. Then he went home to Lily, to their apartment that had grown larger over the years, but still felt cozy and lived in. She was packing for college, sorting through clothes and books and mementos. On her desk was Evelyn's locket with the photos of Emily and Lily. Beside it was the letter Evelyn had written for her 18th birthday. And tacked to her wall was a quote in Evelyn's handwriting that Lily had found in one of the journals. "Family isn't always simple, but it's always worth fighting for." "Hey, Dad," Lily called out. Can you believe I'm leaving for college in 2 weeks? No, Daniel admitted. You're still supposed to be 7 and asking for the biggest Christmas tree in the lot. I'm still asking for the biggest Christmas tree. Some things don't change. She smiled at him, and it was Evelyn's smile, Emily's smile, Lily's smile all at once. But some things do change. And that's okay too. Grandma taught me that. She spent 25 years searching for something she'd lost. And when she finally found it, it looked different than she expected. But it was still beautiful, still worth all that searching. Daniel crossed the room and pulled his daughter into a hug. When did you get so wise? I think it's genetic, from both my grandmothers, the one in Florida and the one I never met. She squeezed him tight. I love you, Dad. Thanks for fighting for us. For the company, for the foundation, for Grandma's legacy. Thanks for making sure I grew up knowing where I came from and who loved me. That's the easiest thing I've ever done, Lily Bear. You've always been worth fighting for. They stood like that for a long moment, father and daughter, their lives intertwined with a woman neither of them had known well enough, but who'd connected them in ways that transcended death. Evelyn Harper had died without getting to be Lily's grandmother, without exploring what she and Daniel might have become, without speaking the words she'd spent years wanting to say. But she'd left them something just as valuable, a foundation built on hope, a company that proved business could have heart, and a family that existed not despite its complications but because of them. She'd left them the certainty that love didn't require proximity to be real, that family didn't require biology to matter, that connection could endure even when circumstances made it impossible. She'd left them each other. And in the end, that was the greatest gift she could have given. Somewhere, Daniel liked to think, Evelyn and Emily were together at last. Mother and daughter, grandmother and mother, 3 generations of women whose love had shaped a family they'd never gotten to see whole. They were watching over Lily, proud of who she'd become, grateful that their losses had transformed into something beautiful. And somewhere in that cosmic somewhere, maybe Evelyn was smiling. Maybe she finally understood that she hadn't been invisible after all, that she'd been seen, loved, remembered, that her life had mattered not just for what she built, but for who she loved and who loved her back, even if that love came wrapped in complications and impossible circumstances. Some stories didn't have neat endings. Some love was messy and incomplete and forever marked by what-ifs. But it counted anyway. It mattered anyway. It was enough. This was their story. Evelyn's and Daniel's and Lily's. A story about loss transformed into legacy, about secrets revealed too late but forgiven anyway, about love that existed in all the spaces between what was and what might have been. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And after everything, after all the searching and longing and fighting and hoping, that was more than enough. It was everything.